This is Bloomberg Business Week Daily, reporting from the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead, with insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy, plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Business Week Daily with Carol Masser and Tim Stenivek, live on Bloomberg Radio, television, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals.
Everybody, we are live in a sunny San Francisco. It was cloudy this morning. Sun's coming out.
Welcome to the Bay Area.
Welcome to
California. That's what I'm going to say.
Says the California man. Folks, this is one of our favorite events, I think, every year. It's Bloomberg Technology's annual summit. Everybody and anyone who is moving and shaking within the technology world. It's this great combination of tech trends, right, that are affecting business overall.
Yeah, that's really what the theme is here, with a lot of AI sprinkled in. We heard on the stage from a great group of folks a little earlier. San Francisco Mayor Daniel Lurie wrapped things up earlier in the morning. Also, just now hearing a few moments ago from Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi. We had a great lineup, too, on our program on Bloomberg Business Week Daily.
Yeah, Tim just mentioned the Uber CEO up on stage. Soon to go up on stage is the CEO of Peloton Interactive. A lot going on at that company. Our own Mark Gurman is going to talk to him, so we're going to dip a little bit into that.
Looking forward to that here on our program and on our airwaves in just a few minutes. We're going to be speaking with the COO of the productivity platform, Asana. She's standing by. We got a lot to chat about with her.
Aravind Srinivas, also the co-founder and CEO of Perplexity AI, also going to be up on stage here, so we're going to touch upon what that panel is digging into. And we got a special guest sitting right next to us.
Yeah, we do. I want to bring in Anne Raimondi. She is COO of Asana, the productivity platform. She joins us here on set at the Bloomberg Technology Summit. Shares of Asana fell by 20% on Wednesday. The company's first quarter results prompted a downgrade by HSBC, despite the fact that revenue came in right on the average analyst estimate. The company also, Carol, raised its full-year non-GAAP operating margin guidance as it was, quote, reflecting our confidence in our ability to drive durable, profitable growth, even in the face of macroeconomic uncertainty.
There's a lot coming at companies. Anne Raimondi is COO and head of business at Asana. Company has a $3.5 billion market cap, and she's here on site. Nice to have you here with us. How are you?
Great to be here. Good. It's so great to see both of you, and excited to be here at the conference.
It's great to have you here. We love the energy. Tell us, though, about this macro environment and the macro uncertainty that's still out there.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just slowing down some of the bigger decisions that customers are making, whether that's like full-scale transformation or a lot of larger consolidation initiatives. But the bright spots we're seeing is companies are leaning really heavily into AI. And so that's where we are also really excited. We launched AI Studio, which is an add-on to the Asana platform. And that performed really well in Q1. And it didn't fully launch until sort of the second half of Q1. But that's where we're seeing a lot of customer excitement.
I'm glad you brought up AI, because that's exactly where I want to go. I've been thinking a lot about what I heard from Dario Amodei over at Anthropic. I think it was just last week he told Axios that we could see some real workforce destruction in the next 1 to 5 years. AI could lead to 10 or 20% unemployment, and it could destroy about half of all entry-level white-collar jobs. If that happens, that would be really bad for companies that make productivity software like Asana.
Yeah, what we're seeing is, and you know, Anthropic is a very important partner of ours. Dustin, our founder and CEO, is quite involved there. There's the bigger concern of disruption of jobs. I think what we're seeing with our customers, though, is the ones that are kind of staying ahead, they see the opportunity right now is human and AI collaboration. Because as far as, you know, we're seeing, AI is not fully replacing entire jobs. I think what AI is really good at is automating a lot of tasks that right now could allow people to be more productive. So we're really focused on it. Yeah.
Do you see AI fully replacing jobs in the next 1 to 5 years, like Dario Amodei says?
I don't think I'm in the position to predict quite as well as Dario is, but I do think we see, you know, with our customers, what we see is they're very intentional of there are some jobs that are likely, the most likely to go away. The ones that are tasks that can be, and in some ways you want to be replaced by AI so people can be doing things that are more creative and more productive. I think there are some jobs that will be changed with AI, where AI is going to be an integral part of how people do their jobs. And then what we're hopeful for is that there's a whole set of new jobs that are created that only people can do. So I do think we're right in the midst of transformation at a rate that we probably haven't seen before. But what we're really focused on is like helping companies manage through that transition by enabling their existing employees to embrace AI in their workflows.
And one thing I want to ask you about is, I think all of a sudden, Tim and I feel it in terms of the use of AI, where it was kind of like, oh yeah, everybody else is using it, and all of a sudden we're really leaning in big time and finding it super productive.
Yes.
But that innovation or innovative cycle is moving really quickly.
Yeah.
And I do wonder what it means for a company like you, where you are kind of facing that speed and then hoping to continue to differentiate yourself from everybody else who's also moving really fast.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we're seeing is, like, at least for our business, why we're investing so heavily in AI is that we do see a shift ultimately from seat-based in SaaS to consumption-based.
Yeah.
And so wanting to, be ahead of that. I think the other thing that we're really seeing that's important to sort of focus on is, like, how can companies enable employees to understand how the LLMs work, be proactive in where they're applying and deploying
There's
AI.
a huge education cycle that needs to happen.
There really is. The other thing that we're seeing is, you were mentioning, like, now everyone's using it, but what we're also finding is that when it is very bottoms up and in every single tool and everybody's got a chatbot, companies actually aren't realizing either the productivity gains or the acceleration. The companies that are moving ahead are doing it in a very tops-down, coordinated way, which isn't always how technology's been adopted in the past.
Right.
But with AI, I think that strategic view on where you're going to deploy AI is really critical to actually realize the gains.
Let's talk a little bit about the macroeconomic environment. You've got a great view of the global economy. Where are you seeing strength? Where are you seeing weakness geographically?
Yeah, geographically for us, we're actually seeing quite a bit of strength internationally, in EMEA, in Japan.
Does that surprise you?
That does a bit, given all the things in the macro, but I think for us in particular, the segments and the verticals that we're in outside of tech, a lot of companies are continuing to, invest in technology, invest intentionally in AI. We see that in manufacturing, energy, financial services, healthcare.
But is this a function of actual strength in those economies, or is it a function of these are the sectors that are finally adopting this technology? So the tech sector was the first sector to do that.
Yep.
Obviously, your core customer base. But now you're seeing your tools being adopted by other types of companies.
It's really the latter. Yeah, that they're really embracing, hey, how can they be intentional and proactive in not only adopting collaborative work management, but AI on top of that.
Okay.
I got to ask you, just because today, the press conference from the White House, there's a lot said about Elon.
So 45 minutes at the Oval Office.
It was a long one. And it does feel like the bromance, the big tech bromance between President Trump and Elon Musk is over. Is that a good or bad thing for the tech community?
Oh, that's a big. I do not know if I am the expert to answer that question.
But I do wonder. He's on there, right? And he's. I think Elon is going out on social and being a little aggressive at this point after being like this. It seems like.
I think underlying what we should all be focusing on is, hey, with uncertainty in the global macro, what can we do to make sure the most important businesses and companies and innovations are being invested in and accelerating, right? Or a different way to say it for me is, like, we're trying to figure out, like, how do we control the controllables? And know that we're in a relatively volatile and political environment.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
Tim asked you about growth geographically, and I feel like we talked a lot about what's going on overseas. How do you describe the U.S. market right now and the willing to do the capital spend, whether it's on software, whether it's, that's your world, hardware, but what is kind of your take on that?
The sentiment we're hearing, especially from our larger customers, is a lot more intentionality, I would say. And
so they're aware, there's a budget.
There is. And then I think there's, again, depends on the sector.
Right.
They're trying to figure out from a priority standpoint, one, how much do you invest in AI and where? And then everything else technology-wise, I do think we're seeing a lot more movement towards consolidation, which is which really was sort of the after effects of like the technology bloat during the pandemic. Yeah.
Speaking of the tech, we're seeing inference and costs actually come down. Agentic workflow is making inroads. Job growth, particularly in tech, has been slow or is trending down. What does all this mean to your seat-based revenue model, and where really are we in that transition?
Yeah, I mean, we're actively looking to, sort of balance from a fully seat-based to a hybrid of seat-based and consumption-based. And we also think there's a subsegment of customers ultimately that may be spending more on consumption. And we're already seeing early signs of that probably in more like our mid-market customers who are now spending as much on seat as they are on AI and the credits. So I think that's like good, positive news in terms of a transition. And so we're, continuing to invest in how we might help customers sort of shift in that direction.
One last question is, I think something we talked about, all of these programs and AI will make us more productive, no doubt about it. But going back to that idea of like, what jobs does it take, that head count? Like ultimately, does it make us more productive? We don't need so many people. And then coming back to you guys, we're not going to need as much in terms of demand and product from everybody.
Yeah.
Is that cycle going to play out? Possibly?
One of the things, Dustin, our CEO and founder, often talks about is like, hey, what this evolution may look like, again, depending on the kind of company, what problems they solve, what products they bring to market, is that they will start to see a shift from payroll spend to sort of AI consumption spend. And Tim, you mentioned, hey, we're seeing costs come down. One of the things we really provide is choice for customers to actually transparently pick the models depending on the workflow, how complex it is. So there's a menu of pricing. So there's and they can choose that. And so I think that's going to be really critical too, is like, it's not all models against, sort of like all problems, really being able to pick judiciously.
Listen, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you. It's great to see both of you, and I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. Good to have you here. Anne Raimondi, she's COO and Head of Business at Asana, joining us right here at the Bloomberg Tech Summit in San Francisco. We have something special going on, though, on stage right now.
Yeah, let's head on over to the main stage because we've got Peter Stern, the President and CEO of Peloton Interactive, in conversation. It's happening right now with Bloomberg Technologies' Mark Gurman.
A typical day for me is like this morning, getting up and doing a little bit of cardio. Ran to the gym actually, and then did also some strength training. And then I'm mostly spending my time working on those 25 initiatives with our team members, trying to define how we can serve our members better. And if I can spend my time on that kind of substance, that's a really great day.
What are the top 3 of your 25?
So not going to announce all of the details of these sorts of things, but I'll tell you a little bit about the top 1. And that is that we have reignited the innovation engine for us as a company. And so focusing on the products and the experiences that we're going to offer over the next few months is absolutely my number 1. Another one that I think is really important that we're focused on is how we use AI to deliver personal experiences for our members. That is another one that I'm spending an enormous amount of time on, so huge priority for us.
Talk to us a little bit more about that, about AI, and what does the future of fitness look like with AI at its core?
Yeah, so every member is different. They all have different intents for why they choose to become a member of Peloton. That can change over time, so we need to not just get to know you, but we need to evolve along with you. Every member is different in terms of their baseline level of fitness, their level of commitment, their level of confidence. And so one of the things that I really value is the human coaching that our amazing instructors provide at Peloton. But I want to find ways to scale them by creating individualized programs for each of our members so that they can get the right class from the right instructor that's personalized for them. A really simple example of how we're doing it right now is that we do something called power zones on bike, or we do pace targets on tread, where we actually set individualized speeds or levels of effort for each of our members. But then we've introduced a new set of features called personalized plans, and we've had, at this point, I think over 600,000 of our members have started a personalized plan. And the system basically understands your goals and then builds a plan out for you. And we deliver real results with these sorts of things. So just to give you an example of how this stuff really does make a difference. For example, when one of our members buys a treadmill, within the first 4 weeks of using the treadmill, we're on average reducing their mile time by 30 seconds. Right? So we can make real differences in somebody's conditioning. And that translates not just into more confidence and better performance as an athlete, it translates into a longer life.
What about data collection so you can get some more information about the user and then use AI to optimize their workouts? Do you need a wearable? Do you need a new heart rate strap? Do you need more sensors on the treads and bikes themselves?
Yeah, we're very lucky in this regard in that our members are doing a lot of that hard work for us. So we have a great partnership with Google Fitbit, for example. We have done integration with Garmin smartwatches because a lot of top athletes choose that. And we also are working with the Apple Health app to make sure that we can import data from there. A very large fraction of our members have an Apple Watch. And that Apple Health app basically can act for many, many members as basically a Rosetta Stone for us, allowing us to get access to the data that we need with the permission of the member. Once we have that data, now we can use the third-party information that our members are providing us. But we have such rich first-party information on our members as well, based on the workouts that they're doing on our machines and how much they're pushing themselves. If they have a watch, we can look at their heart rate and we can impute then how much effort they're expending. And if they don't have a watch, we can basically compare them with members who do have one. And so we can basically determine how hard you're working. And we can, for example, calculate things like a cardio fitness score. So I'm really excited about how we'll be able to use data to deliver ever more personalized experiences for our members.
So you said you did a workout this morning. Obviously, Peloton's based in New York, so you're here, probably stayed in a hotel.
Yeah.
How important is the hotel business and the gym business to Peloton under Peter Stern, and compare it to someone buys one for their home business?
Yeah, so the nice thing about this is these are not either-or situations. I think it might have been perceived that way in the past, but it's absolutely not. Let's take travelers in hotels as an example. If you're the type of person who is in a hotel, then you're a person who is investing in yourself. You have some ability to pay for a service, and you're going to a hotel gym. You are really committed to taking care of yourself. That is a situation where we should have Peloton equipment everywhere. I'm really happy with the partnerships we have right now with Hilton and with Hyatt, where we have Peloton equipment in most of their gyms. I do think in hotel gyms, basically, Peloton equipment should be a must-have amenity. It's the sort of thing where you shouldn't even you wouldn't even want to stay in the hotel if it doesn't have the Peloton equipment that you count on having at home. And then that's a great way for us to meet new members because some people might not have had a chance to try our equipment out, but while you're traveling at a hotel gym where you've got a little time on your hands, that's a great way to do it. Now, with regard to commercial gyms, there's also tremendous opportunities there. We have a number of pilots taking place with all sorts of gyms, including the Y, so we can try to make Peloton equipment as accessible as possible. But one of the things that I'm really excited about, and this is not something that we've really talked about publicly before. Not a lot of people know that we own Precor, which is one of the leading providers of equipment to gyms everywhere. We are bringing Precor in to basically be the lead partner in a commercial operating division for Peloton. And the Precor business has the skills to be able to install and service equipment to the exacting standards of gym operators who have a very heavy duty cycle on that type of equipment. And so we're gonna be able to bring Peloton equipment into more gyms with the capabilities of Precor. At the same time, we're now bringing Peloton workouts onto Precor equipment, which will really differentiate that Precor equipment in the minds of gym operators and hopefully open up even more new audiences for them. So, I would basically say this is a long overdue post-merger integration that we're doing with Precor and making it the foundation for our commercial business.
How do most people buy a Peloton, right? Are they subscribing to it with your rental program? Are they doing installments? Are they buying it outright? And then earlier this week, you launched a new program sort of a resale website, like a Craigslist for Peloton, I guess you can call it. Talk to us about that.
I would say actually the two largest channels are people buying Peloton equipment from our website. You go to onepeloton.com and it's all there, and it's a really great way to buy it. But one of the largest ways for us to acquire new members is in the secondhand market. So you raised, Mark, this announcement that we had a couple days ago about something called Repowered. And the idea here is that there are lots of Peloton bikes in particular that are out there in the world that are being underutilized. And that does no one any good. I'd love for people to get back on the bike. It's the right thing for them. Certainly it's great for us as a company. But if you're not going to use a Peloton bike, we want to make it really easy for you to get that into the hands of someone who will love it. And historically, that's taken place, for example, on Facebook Marketplace. And that's absolutely fine for people who want to do that, but it means that you need to transact with a stranger on both ends and potentially have that stranger come into your home. And so what we're trying to do is streamline that and deliver a more premium experience for those secondhand customers. And what this does is it allows us to get our bikes that are built to last into the hands of people who will love it at a price that's a fraction of a new bike. And there's no capital expenditure for us as a company. There's no environmental impact associated with producing those bikes because they're already out there in the world. And so it's a great way to help somebody get fit and grow our business.
Last question for you. Peloton, standalone business for years to come? Is it potentially an acquisition target for a larger company? What do you see as the...
I mean, I was not hired to sell this company. I was hired to bring this company back to growth, to reinvigorate it, and it is happening. So we are a standalone company for years to come.
Great. Thank you, Peter Stern.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
All right, everyone. You've been listening to a live conversation between our Mark Gurman and, of course, Peter Stern, who is the president and CEO of Peloton Interactive. Standalone company, not looking to be sold.
Yeah, he said I was not brought in here to sell this company. So the question that everybody's been having as over the past couple of years, Peloton's value has just shrunk. I mean, even a couple of years ago, people were like, is this a company that Apple would buy? Is this a company that Amazon would buy? We talk a lot about that with Mark whenever he's on our program talking about
it. Was
Peloton.
such a COVID story, right? And
yes.
It's trying to figure out its way forward. Anyway, if you missed any of the conversation, just head to the Bloomberg and you can check it out. Hey, coming up next, we're going to check into a drone maker that has been laser focused on providing drones to Ukraine. We've got the CEO of Quantum Systems right here. We're going to talk to him in just a moment.
Meantime, let's get a check on the trading day and top business stories. Here he is, back in New York, Charlie Pellet.
Thank you very much. Peloton shares, by the way, down 7.3% right now in the year-to-date column. We're looking at Peloton down 20.3%. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, all in the red right now. Been that kind of a day, swinging between gains and losses. Wall Street refraining from making big bets ahead of the jobs report tomorrow morning, which may provide more clues about whether the Fed will be able to meet market expectations for 2 rate cuts this year. The S&P now lower by 16, slight bounce off the bottom. We've got the S&P down 0.3. The Dow is down 0.1%, now down 22 points. NASDAQ down by 0.4%. 10-year yield at 4.39% with a 2-year 3.92%. Gold down 0.6%, 33.52 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude 63.34 a barrel, up 0.8%. Elon Musk and Donald Trump's alliance has ended in a public feud, with Musk criticizing Trump's tax and spending bill and Trump accusing Musk of trying to tank the bill because it hurts Tesla's bottom line. Right now, we have got President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping agreeing to further trade talks to resolve disputes over tariffs and rare earth minerals. Again, stocks lower. S&P down 13, drop there of 0.2%. By the way, Broadcom reports after the close of trading. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Hey, thanks so much for that update, Charlie. Do appreciate it. Well, by now, we've all seen the dramatic footage from Sunday's drone attack. Ukraine going after different assets of Russia's military deep inside Russian territory. In fact, Carol, by early 2025, this was remarkable when I was preparing for this, drones were accounting to 60 to 70% of the damage and destruction caused to Russian equipment in the war. This is according to data from the UK-based think tank the Royal United Services Institute.
I gotta say, the way we think about warfare has definitely changed dramatically. And this is where Florian Seibel comes in. He's a former German Army helicopter pilot, an aeronautical engineer who a decade ago founded a company called Quantum Systems. It makes multi-sensor drones. Now, 90% of its sales go to the military sector, and it's provided thousands of drones to Ukraine specifically. And so we're kind of dying to talk to him.
Florian Seibel joins us from Italy. Florian, good to have you with us. I know there's a little bit of delay. We appreciate you taking the time and staying up a little late in Europe for us on Bloomberg Business Week Daily. First big question that I have for you is, given what you know about Sunday's drone attack, were any of your drones actually used in that attack?
So what we know, not as in a way that they would act as being the ultimate weapon. All of the drones that we are building are used for ISR missions, which is intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. So that means we are spotting potential targets. So our drones have wings. We have flight time of several hours, and we fly deep into enemy territory. So we spot, and then other type of drones come in.
Do your drones ultimately replace the capabilities of aircraft such as the U-2 spy plane?
Well, you know, there's a reason for every asset to have, and I think, you know, mostly, you know, war times are times of change and new doctrines are happening, and every war that is coming up will not start as the last one ended. So. You know, I'm not really sure if the next war will be all about drones, but what I can say now, definitely it's a vehicle for Ukraine to fight off Russia, because they did not have enough conventional weapons to take them to the battlefield the way Russia would have expected. So, I mean, they were just very curious and using what they have, and that's where we are. You know, this is technology changing the way things happen. Huh?
Well, that's where, Florian, I kind of want to go. I think after that drone strike by Ukraine and Russia, we had so many conversations in the newsroom about, oh my gosh, like warfare just continuing to change very dramatically. My dad and his three brothers all fought in World War II, excuse me. A lot of man-to-man combat. It was just a very different type of warfare. You know, we've seen the gamification of warfare. How does drones kind of make it safer on one level in terms of not putting people at the kind of right at the top, you know, the front line, if you will, but at the same time make it easier for someone to flip a switch and send drones into combat?
You know, you use the word that describes it quite well, which is gamification. You know, it's using a lot of technology that was spilling over from adjacent industries like cell phone technology. You know, a lot of the small stuff, chips, batteries, cameras that they weren't just not available a few years ago to companies like us. And you know, the cell phone industry basically allowed us all to disrupt classical defense military companies, because now you know it's available to everybody, and China is very strong in that regard. And I think what has to happen now is we need to rebuild, specifically in the US, but also in Germany and Europe. We need to rebuild the industrial base to be capable of producing thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s of these units. It's not about like a few multi-$100 million aircraft anymore. It's about large numbers, attritable platforms. You know, you want to saturate your adversary, and there's companies like Quantum and Angular in the US that are changing the rules how we play. Huh?
Florian, I am curious though, is there somebody, an entity, a country that you will not sell to?
Well, you know, in Germany, all of what we do is very regulated. And so we have a German export control authority, which is called BAFA, which is very much in line with NATO and the German governmental official position. And so we have to we have to fulfill these guidelines and guard, and so it's basically impossible for us, from a legal perspective, for example, to sell into countries like Iran and Russia and China, but also, then that's the legal perspective on it, and then we as the founders and we together with our investors have made it very clear that even though if we could sell to certain countries, we have to feel comfortable with that as a company. For example, Saudi Arabia is probably one of those countries that would be quite obvious that we could sell to, but we would probably have a discussion before we would do so.
You mentioned investors. The company is backed by Peter Thiel. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Before we get there, I want to talk about the opportunity outside of Europe, because for much of the past 3 years, you have been selling your drones to Ukraine, but you did just open a 135,000 square foot facility here in California. What is the opportunity in the U.S. market?
I think that was a very smart decision, to do that, because the U.S. DoD is the single largest Department of Defense in the world, and obviously Europe as a total is about the same size, but it's very fragmented into 26 member state countries. So going to the U.S. and entering that single biggest market was a must-do for us. There were a lot of people saying it's going to be hard for a non-U.S. company to do well, but I think we managed to do so. I've spent 2 years of my life in the U.S., 1 year in high school, 1 year when I was trained as a professional helicopter pilot in Fort Rucker, Alabama. So I think I picked a little bit up of the way of how America works and what's the life over there and how the people do business. And so I was very lucky to hire an excellent CEO coming from the drone defense industry, and he was setting up Quantum Inc. in Moore Park, and he has been doing incredibly well. And so I think, it's not the US or Europe. I think part of our mission is also to, in these uncertain times of what we see at the moment, where the US is trying to break away from Europe, that economic companies that are on the free market, act as a glue maybe to get us through these times, because the US has been always the biggest ally to Europe, especially what is coming up tomorrow, D-Day, and we want to pay back a little bit here, and so for me it was a natural thing to go to the US.
Yeah. Okay, so we are Bloomberg, and we are always curious about interesting startups and as they are growing. And as Tim mentioned, you are backed by Peter Thiel. You just raised about $181 million, a financing round, valuing you at more than $1 billion. So kind of going into that unicorn status. When is the IPO? If there is one, will it be Europe? Will it be the United States? What will you guys do?
It's unclear at the moment. Right now, we're doing very well. We're probably going to raise 1 or 2 more rounds. Being on the capital market also means you're very transparent in what you do, and it's these big government contracts we are after. They're either 0 or 1, and we don't want to end up being the goal of speculative. Betting on us or against us on Wall Street. So I think we'll take like 1 or 2 more years, 1 or 2 more financing rounds, and then probably, as we are a German company, we could look into doing a European IPO, or as you said, New York Stock Exchange. Probably depends a little bit also on how well we do with our U.S. facility. As you said, we have heavily invested in a 135,000 square foot. We need to fill that with business. We expect the U.S. government to give us more contracts to pay back that we invest so heavily into the U.S. now, and then it's an open decision, I would say, as of today.
Well, it's always, interesting. We talk so much about, here we are in San Francisco, the heart of Silicon Valley, just nearby. Innovation that happens around the world. You are based in Munich. How does that startup environment differ there, over in Europe, in Munich specifically, versus maybe elsewhere, versus the United States, for example?
Yeah, so having lived in the United States and having met a lot of U.S. investors in the last 6, 8, 10 years, you can definitely say that the spirit of go big or go home or think big is definitely a part of Silicon Valley culture. Whereas in Germany we have excellent engineering, I would say, at very decent price and cost of living. So I think there's an advantage for both locations to be. Obviously, especially in the beginning, I was always a little bit jealous looking at the amount and the number of companies that are still being founded in the U.S. So it's so much more and bigger than Europe. But I think we're catching up. What has happened in the last 2 or 3 years, it's clear for us now in Europe that we are on our own. We need to reinvent ourselves. We need to define who we are, who we want to be in that world. And Germany always has been the place of great world-leading tech companies. I think we have just not had that in the last 1 or 2 decades, and I think it's time to change that again, and we are ready to do that.
Hey, Florian, before we let you go, I know you're focused on these UAVs that are really about reconnaissance, but I want to pick your brain a little bit about the areas of innovation, especially here in the U.S., because back in March, the U.S. government awarded Boeing the new Air Force F-47 stealth fighter jet. There's sort of a lot of controversy around this because it's still going to be crew-based, though the president did say we'll be able to fly remotely. Should the U.S. right now, or should countries be investing in any crewed aircraft right now, or is the future 100%, in your view, UAV?
I think the future is unmanned. It's definitely about robotics and unmanned systems. The question is, how fast will that happen? I think the UK has just brought up a new defense policy. They call it 20-40-40, saying 20% will be or should be assets, classical assets like there used to be, so manned fighter jets, 40% ISR and intelligence, and 40% unmanned strike capabilities. So I think it's not either or. I think it's a combination, both, but definitely more than we used to see. And I don't know if the F-47 is going to be manned or unmanned. Probably these high-value assets will still be manned, but they will definitely not fly into enemy territory. I think they have a standoff capability, extreme long-range radar range because they're so super expensive. But let's see. It's changing. Maybe the next war will be not fought on drones. Maybe it's in space.
Or maybe we won't have a war, which would, sorry for you, but it would make me kind of happy.
They do agricultural drones too. It's
so
just
do that.
It's just the mix has been really military focused over the last few years.
Peace would be nice.
It would be. Now you're asking for a lot, Carol.
I know. I
hey,
always do.
Florian, thanks for joining us. That's Florian Seibel, CEO of Quantum Systems, joining us from Italy just now. He's also featured in Business Week's One to Watch in Technology. It's a guide to the people you'll be hearing more about in the near future. So check that out in the current issue of Bloomberg Business
It's always a great list. All right, folks, watching the trade action all over the place on Wall Street in terms of equities. Let's head back to Bloomberg headquarters in New York City and to Charlie Pellet.
Thank you very much indeed. All over the place certainly sums it up, Carol and Tim. Right now we have got the S&P 500 index in the red. Stocks edging lower after earlier climbing on hopes tensions between the U.S. and China will cool down as Donald Trump and Xi Jinping agreed to further trade talks. Right now we have got the S&P still in the red, down 8 points right now, down 0.1%. Dow Industrials up 20, higher now by 0.1%. We've got NASDAQ down 40. For the NASDAQ Composite Index, a drop there of just about 0.2%. The Bloomberg Mag 7 Index, hard hit today, down 1.1%. 10-year, 4.39%, with the 2-year, 3.92%. Spot gold currently trading right now lower by 0.5%. Gold in the red by $18 the ounce, $33.54. West Texas Intermediate crude is higher, up 0.8%, $63.35 for a barrel of WTI. Bitcoin right now with a $103,000 handle, down by 1.4%. Some of the other stories that we are following for you at this hour. Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel Corp are on pace to finalize their $14.1 billion combination with President Trump's administration ahead of a deal deadline later this month, capping an 18-month saga to combine the steelmakers into the world's second-largest producer. Circle Internet shares are surging right now. At one point, the stock was up 235% in the first day of trading after the company and its shareholders raised nearly $1.1 billion in their IPO. Circle shares are pushing higher now by 175.9%. And President Trump is suggesting that he might let Ukraine and Russia, quote, fight for a little while before brokering a peace deal, and threatened to implement fresh sanctions on both countries if he determines the conflict isn't going to end. Recapping, S&P now down by 4, a drop there of 0.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Carol Massar, Tim Stanovic, live here in San Francisco at the Bloomberg Tech Summit. It is a favorite event.
It's a favorite event. It's also a beautiful day. I look out. We're on the
gorgeous.
fourth floor of the St. Regis right now.
What's on top?
I don't know. I have no idea what's on top. I'm looking straight out there.
trees.
They're lemon trees. I'm sure they're like Meyer lemons or something. And
I might grab
it's
a
just
few.
like very, very California.
It's very California.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, very much to a part of our world today. We've got a podcast. Everybody's got a podcast. Great Chat, though, is a new one that debuted, I think, about 3 months ago. Episodes include conversations that can kind of go in a lot of places. LLMs, AI maybe taking our jobs, the best place to do a startup. That's as likely to be heard as are Hoarding Eggs, Forever 21's demise, and also views on the new code.
We've got with us here at the Bloomberg Tech 25, Ashley Mayer, co-host of the Great Chat podcast. Ashley, co-founder and general partner at the early venture firm Coalition Operators. Last night, she was joined by her co-host, Helen Min, who's a venture partner at True Ventures and also has done time, Carol, at Plaid Dropbox and the company formerly known as Facebook.
Tell us about this podcast, because my understanding, I think it was a LinkedIn post that you guys talked about. I think you did, that it was like a feisty dinner and all of a sudden here we got to a podcast. Tell us about what you guys were thinking and the mission here.
Yeah, I mean, be careful before you go to a dinner with a group of friends because you might end up starting a podcast. The 5 of us had a dinner last fall. It was a fun, feisty conversation about the tech industry, and we joked at that dinner, maybe we should have a podcast. There are so many podcasts that are, more news-driven, more informational, have guests, but we sort of thought that maybe a more conversational format was good, and so that podcast turned into a group chat. And that group chat turned into a podcast, and Great Chat was born.
Can I say it almost felt like Sex in the City for the tech world, a little bit, because you guys will cover a lot of what's going on in the world more generally, but then you'll talk about, some executive moving to Meta or something, and you kind of get into the nitty-gritty of it.
Sex in the City for nerds, maybe. And I think what we try to do is demystify a lot of the headlines everyone's seeing. I mean, the 5 of us have worked in tech our whole careers as investors, operators, founders. My co-host Sally has been in media herself. And so we try to break down like the biggest headlines, the biggest topics in tech and make them accessible, especially to a younger generation of people coming into this industry.
You guys are venture capitalists, so you understand that things need to make money eventually.
Yes.
We're in a world where anyone can do a podcast, so there's a big difference between sort of the Caller Daddies and Joe Rogans of the world and then the newer entrants that don't necessarily have the traction. Is this right now making money? Is the goal for it to make money?
No, not currently, although, never say never. We're very much in scrappy mode. We're really doing this from a place of we saw a gap in the ecosystem, and if I'm going to be a little feisty here myself, we found one of the few areas of white space in tech commentary, which is that we're all women. And we felt like a lot of the biggest voices in the tech industry were very loud, very prominent, often billionaire men, and we thought maybe we could bring a different lens.
You're not
to
saying
it.
any names, but I think I know who you're talking about.
There may be a podcast. It's a group of 4 men who are very loud. And
I did watch Mountainhead.
It sounds like Milan.
On HBO. I don't know if you watched Mountainhead on HBO. I'm just throwing it out there.
Fun fact, I worked for one of those podcast hosts back in the day.
What did you learn?
Well, I learned the power of narrative. And the stories we tell each other and ourselves about our industry determine who gets funded, who gets the benefit of the doubt, where top talent goes, and this stuff really matters.
But it's so indicative of how many conversations have we had about women in tech, and specifically female-founded companies just fighting for capital and to get recognized. Why is that still a problem? And how can you guys use your format and your platform to maybe help that?
Yeah.
And also as venture capitalists in your own right.
Totally. And I mean, I'm an emerging fund manager myself. I have to raise money for my fund. And so it's very much a thing. Listen, I think just having examples of people who are maybe underrepresented, who are visible, who are doing the thing and putting ourselves out there.
Right.
I mean, we're very much in this like anti-DEI era, which comes with both, I think, some negative implications for how people are focusing their time and efforts. But at the end of the day, you know, we all get to put our chips on the table and build things ourselves and elevate other people who are doing it.
Ashley, this pushback against DEI, pushback against women, pushback against anyone who maybe isn't just a white male born in America. That's kind of how it feels right now.
Yeah.
With your platform, are you afraid to speak out against that? I mean, because I think there is a lot of fear among leaders about, you know, the White House either hearing something and not liking it. So tell me about that, and how does it make it also harder for you guys to raise money?
Yeah, I mean, I am at a small fund.
Yeah.
And so I'm not too worried about President Trump watching this interview and coming at me. And listen, I think at the end of the day, my job as an investor is to fund the very best founders I can find. I do super early stage investing, so it really is a bet on the founder. I don't have a diversity mandate. We never have at Coalition, but we have very diverse networks, a diverse pipeline of deals, and so we have a diverse portfolio. And in an ideal world, that's how it works, in my opinion, right? Versus having to have dedicated programs, specific sleeves of dollars going to, you know, early stage founders. I think that, you know, as the venture ecosystem diversifies, the pool of founders who get capital will diversify as well.
I want to talk to you a little bit about what's exciting you in the tech space right now. Before we do that, Carol, you did mention, and Ashley, you mentioned it too, that the president going after different folks. I should bring everyone an update in the sort of relationship between Elon Musk and President Trump. The president putting out on True Social, quote, "Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do, and he just went crazy." So just a little bit of an update, the back and forth between the president and Elon Musk.
It is so over. It does feel...
You know, we're going to talk to RJ Scarinch from Rivian in just a minute, so see if he has any commentary about that. Ashley, before we let you go, curious about what's exciting to you out there. We're not in an ecosystem in technology where venture capitalists are throwing money at, like, you know, app-based games or food delivery apps or that sort of thing right now. A lot of it's going into robotics. A lot of it's going into AI.
Yeah.
Where are you seeing the money go? What's exciting to you?
I mean, excited about a lot of the macro trends that other people are. I have a partner who is actively building a company in the AI space called Tribe AI. We see incredible AI deal flow from her, and she also sort of really has a real-time pulse on what the biggest AI platforms are doing, how enterprises are adopting. I have another partner who runs CityBlock Health, which is a massive healthcare startup. We're seeing incredible breakthroughs in the healthcare ecosystem, especially the intersection of health and AI. But at the highest level, I think there's never been a better time to be an emerging investor and an early stage investor, because so many things are changing about the world, right? From a technological perspective, the AI platform shift is really changing everything. From a regulatory perspective, I mean, it's a little bit of a wild west, but change is generally good for early stage startups. Culturally and from a media perspective, the way startups build their brands, go to market, find their customers is changing. And so that for me is so exciting. These moments of change are where the most opportunity comes from.
So 10 seconds in a world where everything feels so uncertain, you feel pretty confident.
I feel good. I mean, I think if you've built your career in the startup ecosystem, you're purpose-built for change, and there's never been a bigger period of change than the one we're in right now.
Ashley Mayer, she is co-founder and general partner of the early venture firm Coalition Operators, and she, along with Helen Min, are co-hosts of the Great Chat podcast.
Well, on the big stage right now here at the Bloomberg Tech Summit 2025, Shireen Ghaffari is sitting down with Arvan Srinivas, co-founder and CEO of Perplexity. Check it out.
Best infrastructure. They have their own hardware, data centers, everything. 3 billion, 4 billion users. So why not just change it? Why change Google.com? Like, make it like Perplexity. If that, anyway, AI mode is literally like Even the font is like basically Perplexity now. That's the extent to which they've studied our product. Great. So why don't you go ahead and ship it? You cannot, because you lose all the ad revenue. Like if you can go and ask like what are the best sneakers for you to buy for, or like what are the best jackets for you to buy, or best airlines to pick for this something, or best hotels to stay at a place, how are you going to charge all these people for money? Or if you literally, in fact, like leave the AI answers. These days, if you just go and ask for the NBA score, before even triggering the score widget, they put the Ticketmaster ads right at the top because they need the money. And if that's the money that's paying for all the R&D spend on Gemini.
Right. But what Google does have is reach, right? So they have, billions of users who use it every day.
But they cannot ship it. So that's been consistent over the last 3 years.
And let's talk about, though, I mean, they do ship a lot, but let's talk about what you are going to do to try to get that same kind of reach and that same kind of integration that users have with Google in your everyday life, which, as I understand it, the browser is a big part of that strategy. So can you tell us that why do you think browsers are the next frontier for successful AI companies?
Yeah, often what's said, like why did Sundar become the CEO of Google is because like he focused on the Chrome project, right? He was the one running the Chrome project. And that ended up being one of the biggest weapons for them in this battle against Microsoft. And it took them many years, like probably 10 years, to actually become the leading browser. The browser is the front end to your internet, like experiencing the internet. And the Omnibox, the search box, is where almost all the Google queries are going. That's why if you go to Google Trends and see the topmost queries by volume, it's always weather or like Amazon or Reddit or Instagram, Twitter, like these one-word queries. So most people are just using Google as a navigational tool. But if you can blend navigation, information, and activity like transactions and like doing actual browsing sessions all in like one clean interface, using the browsing infrastructure, you can actually like go for it all in like one single tool. So that's, and if you really want to transition AI from answers to actions, to doing stuff for you, answers are essentially like 4 or 5 searches in one. Actions are like an entire browsing session in like one prompt. You really need to actually have a browser and hybridize the compute on the client and the server side in the seamless way possible. And that calls for rethinking the whole browser. We're not actually like thinking about Comet as yet another browser. It'll be a cognitive operating system. It'll be there for you every time, anytime for work or life, as an assistant on the side or like just going and doing browsing sessions for you. And I think that'll fundamentally make us rethink like how we even think about the internet. Like earlier we would browse the internet, but now people are increasingly living on the internet. Like a lot of our life actually exists there. And if you wanted to build a proactive, personalized AI, it needs to live together with you. And that's why we need to rethink the browser entirely.
All right, well, there you have it. Arvind Srinivas, co-founder and CEO of Perplexity, in conversation with Shireen Ghaffari, a Riot reporter at Bloomberg News.
All right, we've got a really great guest. We want to get right to him. RJ Scaringe is with us. He's, of course, head of the $16 billion market cap automaker. We're talking about Rivian. We talk about this company all the time. With us at Bloomberg Tech Summit here in San Francisco. And we have Ed Ludlow, a member of our team, co-host of Bloomberg Technology, who knows this company so well. Hey, one thing I want to start with, RJ, is there's a lot going on today. The bromance in the White House between Elon and Donald Trump. It seems like it's over. And it's not going well. So I'm just curious, have you been able to kind of win market share or anything as a result of kind of Elon's position at Doge? And I'm just curious how it might play out here.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd just say
anti-Tesla mode.
Republicans and Democrats both buy Nikes. And it's the same thing with Rivian. So I'll go to Rivian events. I was just in New York yesterday. And yeah, it's such a beautiful mix of backgrounds, perspectives, cultures that are drawn to what we're building as a brand.
Right.
And we're about to launch what we call our R2, which is a lower priced vehicle. It starts at $45,000. And that product will even, broaden the aperture even more. And so
I think what Carol's asking is if there's net positive effect for you from this environment on sales and pre-orders.
I think that's what she was asking.
I think you're benefiting from this environment.
The anti-Tesla movement, have you benefited from it?
I think there are a lot of customers who are looking for a brand that they want to connect with. So that we're seeing that for sure.
Yeah. Sort of on that, thinking about the politics of this rare earths. I mean, you and the team have been really clear that you've been working to educate the Trump administration when it comes to the complexities around processing rare earths here in the U.S. We did hear from the president earlier today after a call with President Xi Jinping. He said there should no longer be any questions respecting the complexity of rare earths products. Are you still concerned about accessibility to rare earths?
Well, first I'd say I appreciate that the administration recognizes this as an issue. That's important. And I think that we've done a lot of work and spent a lot of time with the administration on this topic. I think this is perhaps one of the biggest topics surrounding, the trade tensions with China. It's well documented that a vast majority of the world's processing for these rare earth metals happens in China. So this is something that we're going to continue to be very focused on, continue to have concerns about until we start to see it really move.
What's your backup plan?
We have many backup plans.
If you can't get access to these rare earths for some reason over an extended period of time, which are essential in making EVs and batteries, what do you do?
So what we've done, what we've spent time on over the last several months, is to build alternative supply chains, but they're not elegant because they're not set up for scale, and a lot of people beyond us are also trying to build these alternative supply chains. So I think the hope is that in the short to medium term we see this open back up, and I think in the long term we're probably going to see both investment into building rare earth capacity outside of China, and then innovation to remove rare earths from products. So if you take in an electric vehicle, the reason this is so important is the motors use permanent magnets, and the permanent magnets have rare earth metals, things like dysprosium, all those things on the periodic table that we forget they're on there. But those rare earth metals are needed in the magnets, but you can create an electromagnet to power the rotor. The rotor's the spinning part of the motor, but then you've got to get power to the rotor. So that you can do it with a brush, you can do it with induction. So it's a more complex motor product, but it does remove the complexity of global trade around rare earths.
But is that a little time away?
Yeah, it's not, you can't flip your design overnight, but I would say I think a lot of the auto industry is going to start finding innovative ways that are perhaps maybe a little more expensive that reduce the reliance on rare earths.
People wonder how nimble you are, though. Like, do you remember when we first met 7 years ago, with respect, your suppliers really wouldn't engage with you because of scale. So if you have had to pivot a little bit because of policy, particularly for planning for R2, have you been able to, A, get your suppliers to listen to you, and B, affect a change? What's changed?
I mean, we've talked about this a lot. I mean, our relationship with suppliers, the leverage we have with those suppliers is so much stronger today with R2 and what's to come than what we had, in 2019 or 2020, even 2018. But I'd say the thing that's really helpful for us in R2 is it's not as if this is a surprise. We saw, if you going into summer of last year, we saw some of these tensions already rising between the United States and China, and that was as we were planning for and sourcing R2. So we contemplated and in many ways anticipated a lot of these situations we're now dealing with in terms of tariffs, in terms of trade restrictions happening. So in the medium to long term, we're pretty well covered. In the short to medium term, if things get shut off, that's really challenging. And so that's where I think the rare earth challenge is, that if this happens where it's off, it just creates a lot of pressure on a very thin non-China supply chain.
I still think there's a lot of interest in Rivian. What I hear is there's also a lot of interest in Orso, your micromobility spin-off. Would you consider kind of de-risking yourselves a little bit by allowing outside investors to write you a check into that venture and get you some capital or de-risk your own balance sheet in that respect?
Yeah, so we spun this micromobility portion of Rivian out, and we actually raised outside capital. So we brought $105 million in at the start of the year,
which is from Eclipse.
Which is from Eclipse, exactly.
Right.
And so it's now independently financed from Rivian, and it's it's a really exciting set of products. We're going to show those products in the fall.
But would the venture look at even further outside capital to get going a little bit?
We could, yeah, we could, but we're really happy with where it is. It's exciting to build a new business with the strength of all the Rivian technologies as starting point.
I saved 30 seconds at the end to wrap up our show. With everything that's going on from the administration, kind of pushback, it feels like, against alternative energy and EVs, do you think it's a real setback, or things will keep moving? And forgive me, it's just about 30 seconds.
30 seconds. All right.
Go.
Look, I think there's a lot of noise in the short term, but the end state is still really clear. The world's going to electrify. We're going to move towards sustainable, carbon-neutral transportation. And the countries and the businesses that focus on the future state are the ones that are going to be participants in the long term. And so, we talk about this often with the administration, which is the importance of U.S. companies having technical leadership, production capacity around these areas, and make sure we're there.
You did it. 30. Thank you so much. Great way for us to wrap up this hour. RJ Scaris, thank you. Of course, at Rivian, and of course, our Ed Ludlow. Do not go anywhere. The close coming your way on TV, and Tim and I continuing right here on Bloomberg Technology.
This is Bloomberg Business Week Daily, reporting from the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead, with insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy, plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Business Week Daily with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec, live on Bloomberg Radio, television, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals.
All right, everybody, we are just about 1 hour away from the closing bell on Wall Street. A lot of volatility in the trade. There's a lot of back and forth between President Trump and Elon Musk. Shares of Tesla are plummeting. They're down about 11%. So they are definitely in a different part of their relationship.
Look, I think a lot of people were wondering last summer, at the end of last summer, in the early part of the fall, and then after the election, when this bromance would end. It seems to have ended. It's, this is just a week ago. He got this key.
Yeah.
Here's what the president said. The easiest way to save money is to end Musk contracts.
Exactly.
So we're talking SpaceX, obviously.
Right.
What I would say, I would just say, what are the other options that the U.S. government has when it comes to launching some of these satellites?
Well, it's getting personal. I mean, both the president and Elon trading some insults on social media. Trump saying he was disappointed. President Trump saying he was disappointed by Elon Musk's criticisms of the Republican tax policy bill. Was it a week ago, week and a half ago?
It was last Friday. He was in the Oval Office with the president.
And he got the golden key.
Yeah.
Got the golden key, and they said they were going to work together. Anyway, this is playing out, and it makes us wonder kind of what are the implications of it. The implications for Tesla shares, though, they are diving.
Okay, so that's the latest on the back and forth. We'll bring you updates on that drama. Also, taking a look at the markets, Carol, things are a little bit all over the place. The S&P 500 down 0.1%. The NASDAQ Composite down 0.3%. Tesla dragging that one. The Dow up, though, 0.1%.
Let's not forget, the other really big market story, investor story, is U.S.-China relations. And it does look like there's some movement forward as the president of China, President Xi, and President Trump, of course, of the United States, seem to have had a conversation. And so maybe they're moving forward on figuring out some of the pressure.
The president also saying he's going to go to China.
He does. Both of them are going to maybe come to each other's countries. So that's also playing out in the markets. Coming up for us over the next couple of hours, Peggy Johnson, sitting down, CEO of Agility Robotics. We're going to talk about the company's humanoid robotic. It's called Digit. So I can't wait to talk about this stuff because we might be replaced.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe. Maybe by AI. I don't know if by a humanoid robot. We'll talk to Peggy about it. Also, really exciting conversation coming up in the back half of the next 2 hours. We got the Nobel laureate in chemistry. She shared it back in 2020 for her pioneering work on the gene editing technology known as CRISPR. Jennifer Doudna is going to be joining us a little bit later.
Also, the CEO of Code with Clausier. We used to say everybody should learn how to code, but I'm not sure in the world of AI whether or not that's going to be so important. But we'll talk about all of this. First up, though, let's get you caught up to speed on the financial markets. Let's head things over to Charlie Pellet.
All right, thank you very much. Indeed, we got just about 57 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. Got to begin with the end of the bromance. You guys touched on it. Tesla shares are now plunging by 13.4%. President President Trump has proposed ending Elon Musk's government contracts and subsidies, escalating the feud between the two former allies. Trump's threat strikes at a main source of the billionaire's wealth. Musk's Tesla and space exploration technologies have both benefited from federal contracts and subsidies. Again, Tesla shares, they're plunging right now, down by 13.45%, certainly weighing on the Bloomberg Mag 7 index, down 1.5%. S&P right now down 10, drop there of 0.2%. The Dow up 30, that is a gain of 0.1%. Nasdaq down 78, a decline of 0.4%. 10-year at 4.39%, with the 2-year 3.92%. Gold down $17 the ounce, 33.55 the ounce, down 0.5%. And West Texas Intermediate crude now up 0.9%, 63.40 for a barrel of WTI. Bitcoin down 1.6%, now falling below 103,000, 102,928 on Bitcoin. Bottom line here, the S&P trading lower. Lori Calvasine is head of U.S. equity strategy at RBC Capital Markets, and she told us she is waiting for the next catalyst. And again, right now,
we think the stock market is on. We need something else big to give us a jolt in terms of improving the macro outlook and getting that backdrop not just a little bit better, but a lot better. And I just don't see that coming right now. I need a little more proof.
Lori Calvasine of RBC Capital Markets. Microsoft hired today, climbing to a record. Software company is the first of the Mag 7 group to fully recover losses from earlier in the year and rally to a fresh high. Microsoft right now up by 1.1%. Recapping, S&P down 0.2%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Hey, thanks so much for that update, Charlie. Do appreciate it. Robots in warehouses doing repetitive tasks that humans now do, but doing them better and not getting injured. Carol, it sounds like the stuff of the future, but Agility Robotics is one of the few companies that's doing this right now.
Yeah, they really are. Check this out. It's got 5'9" robots working at a warehouse containing products made by Spanx. It has technology and testing at Amazon.com facilities. And that really makes Agility really one of the few humanoid bot companies with machines currently performing useful tasks for customers. If you were wondering if it's happening, folks, it's happening.
Peggy is the former CEO of the augmented reality tech firm Magic Leap. She's held senior roles at Microsoft and Qualcomm. She joins us here in San Francisco at the Bloomberg Tech Summit. Welcome. It's been reported that companies are testing Digit, your humanoid robot. It's what we're talking about. When will it go beyond testing, though, to actually scale? Apparently, there are only about 100 of these that are out in the field right now.
Well, we have gone beyond testing. We are actually commercially deployed as of 1 year ago today, actually, in GXO facilities, which is a third-party logistics provider who sends Spanx out.
You know Mr. Jacobs well at this point.
We do.
So,
yeah.
How many are out there in the field?
Right now, there's a handful of them, but they're getting ready to scale.
More than 100?
Oh, total, we have about 100 out in the field that the company has made. But at GXO, we have a handful of those, but they're looking at next steps on how to scale that beyond that facility.
Peggy, is it all about logistics, at least for the beginning and for a long time? Like, I'm just curious how this explodes.
Yeah, that was the right entry point for a couple of reasons. One is the robot is capable of doing that today. It was made for work. It can pick up heavy containers, even if things are rolling around in it, and still be stable and set it down. It can move things from A to B over and over and over again. Logistics happens to be an area where there's a huge labor gap. These are challenging jobs, very physically challenging. They have repetition. They're a little bit mind-numbing. They're just hard jobs, cause a lot of injuries and things. Hard to fill these jobs. So because of that demand, we are able to bring our robots in.
How expensive are they, and how quickly? It kind of make sense on a financial basis?
You don't have to pay for their health care.
That's true.
You don't have to pay their salaries.
That is so right.
I'm just throwing it out there.
There's no vacation time, although there is maintenance.
They don't fight with each other.
Yet.
Yet.
You haven't seen Terminator, I guess.
No, but seriously, how much do they cost? And like for a company, how quickly does it make sense?
Yeah, right now we talk about them in the range, very low volume of, say, a luxury vehicle. But that's coming down very, very quickly with volume. We believe we have line of sight to about 25K, 30K for these industrial robots. we'll be in that environment for a while now before, say, we get into the homes where I think the price is going to have to come down much, much further.
The big risk that, by the way, we're speaking with Peggy Johnson, CEO of Agility Robotics. If it's getting a little loud for folks, it's just because it's lunchtime here, and we got a lot of folks lining up behind us. Peggy, the sort of golden goose with this stuff is working alongside humans in a way that's not at a risk to the health of the humans, where a robot's not going to like bump them and hurt them. How do you do that? Because that seems to be something that is really, really challenging.
It is super challenging.
These guys got to work alone right now.
Exactly. They have to today work inside of a work cell, which are these gates that go up about waist high. It keeps humans back. Because
it keeps humans back and not robots caged?
Yeah, right. Because they're very curious.
You know how I'm thinking about this.
They're very curious. Humans want to get in there and see them. So it keeps humans back. But the robots themselves are human-sized, and sometimes they fall. They trip or, things just like humans do. And so you have to be able to handle those situations in a very controlled manner. Sometimes they're carrying 50 pounds of weight. That has to be something that you bring the robot down in a very controlled way so that no one gets hurt. You don't want an arm coming around. How do you do that? Super challenging. We figured it out at Agility, and we'll be demoing that before the end of the year. It's called cooperative safety. We can be around humans.
You know, one thing that I've learned over the last few months is that China is doing this really, really well. We have reports that there's a higher density of robots per human on Chinese factory floors than here in the U.S. and then here in Japan. A source featured in a Bloomberg story just a couple weeks ago said there are 50 or 60 companies in China he thinks working on humanoid development now. Are we behind?
I would say yes and no. They do have a plethora of robots out there. Some of what is termed humanoids aren't actually. I mean, humanoids usually have 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. Some of them are simple robot arms and things like that. So if we separate those out and say, just what are the humanoids doing, there's very few that we see doing real heavy industrial work. Oftentimes, it's very lightweight. It's only a handful of skills. I think from an innovation standpoint, the U.S. is still ahead of China in this area.
Okay.
Well, so wait a minute. So, because I think we think about like the automation part that China has done really, really well. But you're saying with humanoids, you think the U.S. is ahead?
I think we are still ahead. We have not seen, first of all, safety incorporated in their humanoids. You must have safe humanoids. You cannot let them out of the work cell where the big markets are without that. You need an E-stop, for instance, an emergency stop on the back. You need to hit that if something goes wrong. It's just like an electronic vehicle.
Can I get one for this?
They do have that in The Wild Robot, the best-selling children's book.
Well,
they do.
Okay, see, they're ahead.
They are ahead.
So I am curious about oversight, though. Like, what is the capacity for someone to go in and affect a program? Like, how does it work? Once a humanoid is out there, are they completely independent? Or is there some oversight? Like, how does this work?
So a couple things. We are actually working with the U.S. government on the standards for humanoids. None exist right now. They need to exist.
Who do you work with on that?
We work with a group called A3, and they then input the results of that into folks like OSHA.
Part of defense? Oh, no. Part of...
Would it go under David Sachs at all? In his AI czar role, in his crypto role?
It will probably cross paths with David at some point.
All right, so continue. So what else? So you're working on these standards.
You need that. But we've taken safety seriously from day one. Because of the power in these machines, you have to take it seriously. If a program, if something should happen, you don't want an arm to fling around and knock you over and do perhaps more damage. So that and also the data on it has to stay very protected, just like anything in a corporate IT infrastructure. You've got to keep the data protected. So we think of all of those things in a combination.
Are they using data from the cloud? Do they have their own, like, on-site, on-premise?
Both. We have quite a bit of compute on the robot itself, and we're also connected to the cloud. We need to step into an enterprise environment. So we have to plug into their warehouse management systems. We have to talk to the other types of robots, like autonomous mobile carts and conveyor belts. Those are all types of automation. And we have to talk to all of those in order to work safely in that environment. And, by the way, to take over those tasks that they can't find humans for, we have to be able to plug in as if it was a human.
You're not the only one here in the U.S. who's working on this. I don't know if you saw him. Brett Adcock from Figure AI was here. They're also working on humanoids. How does your robot differ from Brett's?
Well, we're here today with our robot who will walk autonomously onto the stage today and upon my input will execute on my commands. So that's one big difference.
And it sounds like the Figure AI robot does not do that at this point?
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
It possibly
Has
might,
anyone
but I haven't
seen
it? I don't know.
Okay.
I couldn't. You can ask Brett.
Well, we could do, Carol, do you remember that show many years ago? This was like when I was a kid. BattleBots?
Yeah.
Where they had like remote control cars, robots that would like violently attack each other. I could see like a little cage match between.
Actually, you've seen some video over in China of like different robots kind of doing that.
Digit and like a Figure AI robot.
Yeah, we actually have really taken a stand that we would never arm our general purpose robots.
Oh, that's good to know.
We need to
I
have
appreciate
trust. We first and foremost have to have trust with the humans. So we won't
just
arm
the fact
them.
that we have to, just the fact that she has to say that, I think, is the story.
No, it is a story. Like I'm thinking, we just talked about drones in terms of how that's impacting warfare, and I just think about all this stuff getting into the wrong hands. Like, how do we control that?
Well, we've already seen some of that out of China. You see armed humanoids in videos and things. I think the U.S. has to have a response to that, obviously, and that they should have that kind of tech.
Right.
My point is our current general purpose robots are not meant for that at all.
Okay.
And because we need to build trust in the environment.
Will you rule out ever using your robots for security purposes?
I mean, we'd never rule that out. I just want to make it very clear that what we have today is not meant for that. And you do see videos of that coming out of general purpose robots in China.
Yeah, I will say that.
And that is terrifying.
What we've read, startups are doing trials in China from sorting garbage, delivering medicines in nursing homes. They're thinking about using these for elder care, but also patrolling the streets alongside police officers. And on the other hand, guiding museum tours.
Yeah. Those are all great use cases.
Patrolling is a great use case?
I think it is because you're putting a human in harm's way. Every time a policeman walks out onto the street, I think better to have a robot. I think
But it doesn't have to be armed.
It doesn't. Yeah. In a hazardous situation, there's been some sort of nuclear problem. Send a robot in. Don't send in humans.
I want to ask you. Citi recently projected that the market for the machines, humanoids, and related services will surge to about $7 trillion by 2050, and the world could be populated by 648 million human-like bots by then. What might that world look like? Take us there.
Well, I think that world doesn't happen first until there's safety. So we have to show that these robots can be side by side with humans in a very safe manner. But then you should think of it as a tool in the same way farmers used to plow fields with oxen and now they have machines that do it. This will be a tool that will give you choice. Some people might want to use their robot to cook. You might enjoy cooking. You say, no, just do the laundry for me. So that is, you could think of it as giving you choice to take manual labor off your hands.
So we could have, every household has their own humanoid robot to do like tasks. Like it'll be affordable.
I would say 2 hours a night.
Right?
With like stuff that I do every day.
But I mean, you could see every household having one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, funding, how you're thinking about the business. The information reported just a couple months ago in March that you're raising $400 million at a pre-investment valuation of $1.75 billion. Can you give us an update? Has that round closed?
That is ongoing, and we have the funds that will be used to make our next generation robot, which is going to be awesome. It's going to have a 10-to-1 work-to-charge ratio on batteries, which means 100 minutes of work, 10 minutes of charge, it's back out there on the floor again. It can take full shifts. It's
How
going to
many
be
more
amazing.
rounds, just 10 seconds, how many more rounds of financing do you foresee?
I think this is it.
All right.
Cool stuff.
Did in less than 10 seconds.
I love it. I love it. Peggy, such cool stuff. So glad we could get some time with you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Peggy Johnson, CEO of Agility Robotics. Hey, when our coverage continues from the Bloomberg Tech Summit, we're going to talk about creating software as simple and accessible as writing a blog post. Yes, indeed.
It's 3:21 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg, and this Bloomberg Business Flash is brought to you by ShipStation. Calm the chaos with the shipping software that delivers. Use code Bloomberg for a free trial at ShipStation.com. That's ShipStation.com with the code Bloomberg. Tesla shares now down by 17.1%, certainly weighing on the market. Shares are plunging as President Trump and Elon Musk trade insults. Our Ed Ludlow will have a whole lot more coming up for you in just a moment right here on Bloomberg Business Week Daily. We've got the S&P now down 45, a decline of 0.7%, worst level of the day. The Dow down 202, down 0.5. NASDAQ down 222, a drop there of 1.1%. Right now, we have got the 10-year yielding 4.39%, the 2-year 3.92%. Gold down $13 the ounce, down 0.4%, 33.58 on the precious metal. West Texas Intermediate crude up 0.7%, 63.29 a barrel. And Bitcoin now with a $101,800 handle. Bitcoin is down 2.7%. As for what's driving markets, Emily Rowland is co-chief investment strategist at JH Investments.
There's been this myopic focus on developments out of Washington, and it's really been a market, in our view, that's been driven by feelings and not facts. So it's been driven by political uncertainty and just sort of lack of confidence in what's going to happen next in the economy.
And that is Emily Rowland of JH Investments. Among the names reporting after the close of trading, we'll be hearing from Broadcom, also Lululemon Athletica. Recapping stocks lower, S&P right now down 0.8%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Hey, thanks so much for that update, Charlie Pellet. Our Bloomberg Tech Today conversation is brought to you by Cisco. AI moves fast, and the path forward isn't always clear. Cisco gives you the infrastructure, security, and observability to stay on course. Cisco, making AI work for you. Visit cisco.com/AI.
All right, folks, got to say that one of the things we are talking about a lot today is kind of the back and forth that's going on between President Trump and Elon Musk. It's a battle on social media, and I will just say it's almost hard to keep up with the amount of tweets that are going back and forth. What we do know, and what we know the Bloomberg universe cares about, is that Tesla shares are now down about 16%. Now, one of the key things is the president has basically said one of the ways to save money is cut back on the contracts that are given to all of the entities that are within the Elon Musk universe. I will say, here's one tweet, Elon Musk asking, is it time to create a new political party in America that actually represents the 80% in the middle? Yes or no? So he's putting out a little poll. There's a lot of back and forth, and you can certainly find it on the Bloomberg. We wanted to get to our own Ed Ludlow to talk a little bit about kind of this back and forth of two that seem so intertwined and so getting along, and then all of a sudden it feels very different.
So Ed Ludlow, I think for me there was this realization over the weekend that Jared Isaacman wasn't going to be running NASA. Right. And to a lot of people, and you reported on this a lot over the last few months, to a lot of people in the industry, in Silicon Valley, but also who are in the space industry, said, this is a really good nomination. Yeah. Regardless of what his history has been, he knows what to do when it comes to space. He's been to space. He has a relationship with Elon. He has a relationship with SpaceX. He knows this. He knows the industry.
Makes sense.
It was pulled over the weekend.
Yeah.
Was that the beginning of the end of this relationship?
I think we should go through all of Elon's public and private companies and explain why this is happening and why it's happened so quickly. But yes, what we were told by sources is that Sergio Gore, an official within the White House, waited until Musk's Doge tenure had ended. What has happened in the last few hours is the president has said that Musk left Doge because he was asked by the president to leave. I'm tallying all of this together in real time.
He had to leave at a certain point because of his designation as a special government employee,
which is capped at a certain number of days anyway. But we're just going off what is said publicly by the President of the United States. When Musk left Doge, Sergio Gore, this official, as our sources explained it to us, and others within the White House, basically, who are not fans of Elon Musk, saw Jared Isaacman as being closely associated with Elon Musk. We can get into that. And moved to influence the president to cancel that nomination. The White House is officially saying that and citing Jared Isaacman's historic affiliation with the Democratic Party, as well as donations to him.
Right.
That's a SpaceX relationship we're talking about.
We should note that there have been other people within the Trump administration, and indeed President Trump himself, who in the past has donated to Democrats as well.
Sure.
He talked about that when he ran for president in 2016.
Jared Isaacman went to space twice. He funded those activities himself, but through a financial transaction with SpaceX.
Yeah.
We should talk about Tesla, which is the public proxy for what's happening.
It's
but
getting crushed right now.
What you need to know is that SpaceX, since the year 2000,
down about
has had
16%.
Tesla is down, and I think at one point in the session was down 18%, on track for its biggest drop intraday in 4 years. Like, this is serious stuff. SpaceX and Tesla over the last 25 years have had about $25 billion in government subsidies, grants, contracts, including in SpaceX's context with the defense apparatus of this country.
Right.
And what the president has said, I've got the quote if you allow me to pull it up.
Please.
Is the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it.
Well, Ed, I'll pose the question to you. Maybe Biden didn't do it because SpaceX was the only game out there.
SpaceX is the only game out there commercially insofar as it dominates the vast majority of payload, human and non-human, from Earth into space. And I go back to the point that it is not just grants that NASA issues for development, but contracts with the defense apparatus of this country.
Could Peter Beck's Rocket Lab step in right now? Is it an opportunity for him?
Honestly, they are increasing the cadence of their launch, but the point is that when you are a contractor that serves the government, there are regulatory and contractual baselines, ITAR rules, all of these things that you have to satisfy. Elon, as you and I have talked about this over many years,
Right.
he has security clearance as part of his role as the chief executive officer of SpaceX. This is so fast moving. All I'm doing is summarizing what the president has said today, which is the reason Tesla's down is A, the association. There is now a negative association of Elon Musk with the president. Previously, that relationship supported the stock. In the private company's context, the president is saying that he's going to rip up the contracts that company has with America. This is what's happening in real time. Sorry.
No, I think, it's just amazing kind of how the narrative, the relationship, thinking that it would be good for EVs, right, initially, and it would be good potentially for everything that Elon touches, and we're seeing it's not necessarily playing
What I
out like that.
reported last Friday is that Elon Musk and some of his staff have themselves been phoning lawmakers in this country to lobby on the passage of 2 pieces of legislation that are going through Congress on autonomous driving, to have language and content of those bills help Tesla with its longer-term ambition to have a future where they have a robotaxi service. This is also happening in the background.
Look, it's a little bit of a political question, Ed, but bear with me because there's a connection to Silicon Valley here. Elon Musk, in the months leading up to the election, was really able to gather support of a lot of folks who traditionally supported Democrats. Some folks such as...
Elon Musk previously supported Democrats.
Exactly. So, Mark Andreessen, for example, who's been pro-Trump lately. David Sachs, who serves as AI and crypto czar.
Yeah.
There's a splintering happening right here, and I'm wondering if there are going to be repercussions that go beyond Elon Musk and start to affect a different contingency.
I believe that also in the last 12 hours, at some point, Elon Musk has also posted that he was very helpful to the president in the campaign.
Oh, yeah.
In getting that non-traditional Trump base to vote for the president. This is what Elon Musk said. I'm just saying, I'm trying to condense his own post.
No, you're right. He absolutely said this in the last few hours. Trump wouldn't have won without me, he said. And he also said that Democrats would have controlled the Senate if he didn't get behind Republicans. Well, I guess we're really seeing the power in how this plays out.
Yeah, and look, to Elon Musk's credit, he has been consistent in saying, I cannot influence the president on policy. So let's take, for example, tariffs. Elon Musk was pretty clear on the last earnings call. He does not believe in the level of tariffs that the Trump administration at that time were trying to put in place. Because, of course, if you're an automaker and you're moving products across borders and that's subject to tariffs, that's not good for your top nor bottom line. But he has said that I don't agree with the president on everything. What has changed? And if you're listening to this program and tuning in for the first time, there are posts on social media in both directions where the President of the United States, his relationship with Elon Musk has rapidly deteriorated in a matter of hours.
Stock now down just under 14%, just 20 seconds.
I'm going to get in trouble with TV.
Does this put more pressure on Elon?
Of course it puts more pressure on Elon, because Elon is the CEO of a public company and several private companies that lead fields in America and the world. Yeah.
All right, run to TV.
You gotta go.
Go.
Thank you for hanging out with us.
He's in demand. He's in demand. Our Ed Ludlow, of course, co-host of Bloomberg Technology. Catch it on Bloomberg Television every day from 11 to 12 p.m. Wall Street time. Whoa.
Wow. Okay, so I have a lot to get to.
Where do you want to start?
I want to start with.
Well, let's just say Tesla's down 14%.
Okay.
It was down more, but it's still down a lot.
Let's not forget, First Buddy is what he referred to. He rented a cottage at Mar-a-Lago during the transition. To help with the transition, he put hundreds of millions of dollars behind President Trump. We thought this would be. Look, there were a lot of people who said there's going to be a falling out. I guarantee you there will be a falling out. I was starting to think there wouldn't be a falling out. Remember, Elon Musk has said things like, I love President Trump. I love the president. It's hard for me to love somebody as much as I love him.
Right.
And now, I mean, we're seeing this play out over a very short period of time. But these two, I mean, the fact that Elon said some stuff on Twitter that I'm not even going to repeat.
Well, I was just going to go there.
Yeah,
there is a tweet that's out there that we're not touching because it's not something we've been able to really verify.
It's an allegation that
It's an
Elon Musk
allegation
makes.
that Elon is making. But it just takes this back and forth into a kind of a nasty territory, a very personal territory. And you just do wonder kind of what other narratives and conversations it will spark going forward. And I think about the coverage later today, tomorrow, certainly from a political aspect. And does it weaken possibly the president in the White House? I don't know.
It's a good question.
It's just a question.
It's a good question. I would also make the point that last Friday, the New York Times published a deep investigation into Elon Musk's alleged drug use, specifically regarding ketamine and other pills that the New York Times reported he has been taking in the last few months. Elon Musk has denied those allegations in tweets and responded to, indeed, in the Oval Office last week when he was giving that press conference. But it also dug into his own alleged history when it comes to personal relationships that he's had with mothers of his children.
I just think what's kind of interesting is I remember when the president was coming into the White House, when we saw the role of Elon Musk, we saw about Doge, and how many conversations we had with various folks, including our Max Chafkin, who is one of the co-hosts of our Elon Inc. podcast. But one of the things is we've seen this with President Trump, Donald Trump, get into a relationship with someone, be very close, and then it kind of comes undone. And I think one of the questions we were saying was, how quickly does this relationship come undone? And here we are seeing it, how many days in, how many months in.
How many books were written after the 2020 election by former administration officials in the president's first term? And what the president learned from that, we've read in reporting, has been he wanted to surround himself with people who were loyal this time, because that didn't happen during the first term.
Right. And yeah, it's just kind of fascinating. I will just say our two most read stories on the Bloomberg, folks, and you'll understand why the market's back and forth. President Trump and President Xi, agreed to more trade talks as their rare earths dispute cools. And then you have President Trump targeting Elon Musk's U.S. contracts and subsidies as feud grows. Shares of Tesla are plummeting as we speak. Do not go anywhere. Tim and I are staying here in San Francisco. More from Bloomberg Tech in just a moment.
It's 3:40 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. Tesla shares, they are now lower by 13.4%. President Trump has proposed ending Elon Musk's government contracts and subsidies, escalating the war of words developing today between the world's richest man and the president he helped elect. Now, on his social media site, President Trump posted, quote, "The easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts." The president went on to say, quote, "I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it." Again, Tesla shares, they're plunging now by 14.1%. Keep it locked into Bloomberg for the latest on this ongoing saga. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, very much in the red. However, we are off session lows on the S&P. Right now down 19, drop there of 0.3%. The S&P with 20 minutes to go ahead of the close, now at 59.51. The Dow down 43, drop there of 0.1%. We've got NASDAQ down 105, a drop there of 0.6%. Our Mag 7 index down 1.9%. Certainly Tesla weighing on that index. Tesla again bears repeating, down 14.3%. 10-year at 4.39%. The 2-year 3.93%. Gold down 0.5%. 33.56 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude up 0.8%. 63.38 a barrel on WTI. Coming up after the close of trading, among the names reporting, we will be hearing from Broadcom, up now by 0.2%, and Lululemon Athletica. Right now, that stock is trading lower by 0.8%. And back we go to the Bloomberg Tech Summit in San Francisco. Once again, your hosts, Tim Stenovic and Carol Masser.
Will this be...
Hey, thanks so much, Charlie, for that update. There's this common refrain that if it's connected to the internet, Carol, it can be hacked.
It feels like a really smart thing to be like, kind of keep in mind.
Like, okay, we know computers and like our email accounts can be hacked, but what about baby monitors, doorbell cameras, routers, and yes, even the humble washing machine?
Listen, if it ain't working, we're going to have some problems. This is where Window Snyder comes in. She's the CEO over at Thistle Technologies. They specialize in security infrastructure for devices. Now, Window has led teams building protections into phones, laptops, desktops, and web browsers. She's done this at companies. Yeah, you're going to know who they are. We're talking about Apple. We're talking about Intel. We're also talking about Microsoft and Mozilla.
She's featured in Business Week's One to Watch in Technology. It's a guide for the people you'll be hearing more about in the near future. She joined us here at the Bloomberg Tech Summit in San Francisco. Help me understand how this solution works, because you're selling your solution to the companies that then consumers buy from. So you're B2B, correct?
We are.
You're B2B. So what is the infrastructure that you create that protects my doorbell from being hacked?
Sure. So we build the capabilities that the device developers can incorporate into their products that allow them to reduce the attack surface of these devices, which means the number of entry points into the system, or the areas that are most vulnerable, like the device is most vulnerable during update. And update is one of those things that's really hard to get right and really easy to get wrong.
Yeah.
So because it gets implemented differently in every different environment, that's one of the areas that we target as an area to provide a lot of security resilience. Additionally, validating the update is coming from where you expect it to, by evaluating a cryptographic signature on it. That could be validated by a key that's stored in hardware.
Wait a minute, I don't even think about that being like a cyber attack, but I guess that would be a great place for people to do it. How often does that happen?
Well, the FBI recently released a report that showed that organized crime was using vulnerable routers, home routers,
right,
to string together bot networks that were basically, these devices never get updated, so they're going to persist for indefinitely.
When I talk to people like you, I selfishly always ask about your own security hygiene and like what products that you actually personally incorporate into your life and what you avoid.
So for the home user, it's incredibly difficult because a lot of these devices, you're just it's a black box. You just get what you get, and there's not much you can do to mitigate risk from those devices. At the enterprise, you've got a little bit more of an opportunity, but as a former CISO myself, they're difficult to manage, they're uninspectable. If there's an update available, it's very often very difficult to get it deployed. It's actually a struggle.
What would you say to somebody, a consumer who says, okay, well, Ring Doorbell, it's owned by Amazon, they're a legit company, Eero is, I think, owned by Amazon also. It's legit. Amazon will take the necessary precautions to protect me. What would you say to that?
Amazon has a very large, very good security team. That's fantastic. But there's so many devices out there. I mean, I'm wearing like 2 just from like here down, right? I've got 2 devices over here.
So you got an Aura Ring for our listeners and an Apple Watch as well.
Exactly. But in your home, you might have a smart TV. You might have a baby monitor. You might have even smart ovens. There's so many different kinds of devices. Your printer, they might not all get the same level of security rigor that your Ring doorbell might. That's a device that's been
I would welcome a hacker to make my printer work better. That's what I would welcome.
So you're talking about hacks, right? Like, why do I care about my printer? Like, you're just saying.
Yeah, like, what is somebody going to do with your printer, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, mess up my colors or something. Like, no, like, what is it?
Yeah,
Is
they're already messed up on my printer, truly.
But is it a case that it doesn't work? Or are you saying that there's a security thing we need to be concerned about?
Well, the printer in the enterprise or at home is the place where we take all of our most sensitive documents and store them on paper, right? So if you're an attacker and you're sitting on that printer, you have access to that information. But even that is not necessarily what they're doing on your printer. If you compromise the printer, you're using it to launch an attack against a more sensitive system. And now, since you're on the network, you've got a more privileged position.
So it's the weakest link, essentially.
Exactly.
So I take back what I said about a hacker going into my printer. I do not welcome that.
All right, so help me out here, because I have a husband who loves technology. And so our lights, our, I don't know, heating system, like music, everything is controlled by something. And it kind of drives me crazy. But I mean, does that make a home more vulnerable? Or like, how do you, I don't know, like what things shouldn't we automate or use technology? Like I would love to go back to a light switch where I just flip it on. I don't have that anymore. But I'm just trying to understand like what we should do, what we shouldn't. And it reminds me of, you know, go back how many years you would do a panel with tech folks and they're like, yeah, my kids, they're never on a laptop or they're never watching TV or like, you know what I mean? So what should we do? What shouldn't we do?
Most of the advice we give to consumers is not very helpful, right? So I could tell you to go set up a device network and keep it separated from the network that your laptops use. But that's not really practical advice because most consumers can't set that up. The real emphasis should be on the folks that build those. So for example, in Europe, the Cyber Resiliency Act is forcing these device makers to make sure that they're doing security updates, make sure that they are building security resilience in from the start.
Should we have that here in the U.S.?
We definitely need to make sure that device makers are doing the work.
Do you feel like this is a tech-forward administration? They have representation of Silicon Valley and David Sachs, who's the crypto and AI czar. Are you on his radar for the vulnerabilities that this creates?
I don't know.
Do you have a? Are you in touch with?
That sounds like a no.
Am I on his radar?
Yeah. Are you talking? I mean, a lot of folks we talk to speak to him. So are you? You haven't spoken.
I haven't spoken to him.
Have you spoken? Do you have people who are trying to reach the White House right now to make them aware of this? I mean, this sounds like this is you believe this is a very big issue for consumers.
I've had this conversation with CISA previously.
Yep. Yeah.
I was recently, actually I'm on the National Academy of Sciences Committee for Cyber Hard Problems.
Okay.
We just released the document that describes what are the biggest problems in cybersecurity, and the cyber physical, what we're talking about today, is one of those hard problems.
So you're voicing it, but are they listening?
You know, it takes a long time to make change, and it's really hard to do, which is one of the reasons that at Thistle Technologies, we're trying to make it easy for them to incorporate these capabilities without having to build everything from scratch.
Last question, how fast is your business growing?
You know what? It's there are a lot of factors making this a really critical capability for a lot of companies right now, so it's been amazing.
Okay, all right, good stuff. A little context there. Window, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Window Snyder, CEO at Thistle Technologies, and now everybody knows how to like kind of get into my home.
I take everything back.
Lights, music, you name it.
I'm going to forget all about it. Hey, let's not forget about Charlie Pellet. He's standing by at Bloomberg headquarters in New York with an update because we are just a few minutes from the close. Hey, Charlie.
Indeed, we got 10 minutes to go, and let us not forget about that once great romance. It is falling apart right in front of our very eyes this afternoon. Tesla shares tumbling now as much as 18%. Right now, latest quote on Tesla does indicate that the stock is down 14.4%. This after Elon Musk and President Trump engaged in a public feud on social media with the president criticizing Musk's comments on his tax policy bill scandal, and Musk firing back. Now, this feud marks a breakup of a once extremely tight political alliance. Musk, of course, having spent over $250 million to help Trump's reelection, and Trump having deputized Musk to lead Doge, the government effort to slash government spending. So again, right now we have got shares of Tesla. They are plunging by 14.9%. Member of the Bloomberg Mag 7 index. That index now tumbling by 2%. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, all very much in the red. Just about 9 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. Right to the numbers here, with the S&P 500 index down 22 at 59.47 for the S&P, a decline right now of 0.4%. The Dow down 75, drop there of 0.2%. NASDAQ down 135, a decline of 0.7%. 10-year 4.39%, the 2-year 3.92%. Keeping an eye again on Tesla, and right now the stock down by 14.7%. Back we go to San Francisco as the Bloomberg Tech Summit continues. Once again, your hosts Carol Masser and Tim Stanovic.
All right, thank you so much, Charlie. Yes, indeed, we're here at San Francisco and the Bloomberg Tech Summit. We're going to continue with some of the folks that are here. I want to just kind of set this up because Bloomberg News recently reporting artificial intelligence coding startup Replit is in talks, or was in talks, maybe still in talks, we'll find out, with investors for a new funding round that would almost triple its valuation to about $3 billion. That was according to people familiar with the matter. And so that was really underscoring Silicon Valley investors' appetite for companies using AI for software development. I do feel like, Tim, that's the phase we've moved into.
Oh, let's ask him. We've got Amjad Masad here, the founder and CEO of Replit. He joins us here at the Bloomberg Technology Summit 2025 in San Francisco. Comment on the fundraising and where you are in that. Can you confirm the report?
You know, we're always in talks with investors. We've grown a lot. We've grown just this year over 10x.
Top line? You're talking about top line growth.
Line.
Wow.
So you're always in talks until you're not, and you go public as a company. So
Yes.
you're always in talks until you're not.
Yeah.
Are you currently raising this round?
I can't comment on that.
Okay.
All right, that's it. Interview's over.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
I'll just say things are moving really fast.
Okay.
Well,
So even when you're in talks and then you grow that much, you know, it's like, yeah.
Amjad, talk to us about that growth. Like, who is it that's tapping into what you guys are doing specifically?
Right. Yeah. So, you know, it's all sorts of people. So, Replit, as opposed to say, you know, Cursor, Windsurf, or Claude Code, or other things, we're trying to make it so that anyone is a programmer. So you know, I could encourage anyone in the audience to go to the App Store on their phone and start making software. So the kind of users that we have at companies tend to not be the software engineer. We do have engineers. But for example, product managers, for the first time, can go from an idea to a product without even talking to an engineer.
How does that happen?
So we created a software development agent. It was the first software development agent on the market. Now we got a lot of copycats, but basically it takes the user command, breaks down the problem into different tasks, starts coding the different files, runs the program, tests the program, takes a screenshot, looks at it, and then talks to the user, hey, did I build what you told me to build? And then there's a conversation with the user.
I just did a big piece on Duolingo, and so this is fresh on my mind.
They're a customer.
They are a customer. So that's interesting because what I read was they're known for languages, but they had chess is a new area where they're branching out into, and you can learn how to do chess on the platform. Apparently, it was created by a designer and a product manager. They used a program called Cursor. Would that be a competitor to you? Would it work in tandem?
They work in tandem. We compete on the margins, but they work in tandem. A lot of time, people start with Replit, create a prototype, take it to Cursor, they iterate on it.
So if product managers and designers are doing this, where does that leave software engineers?
Yeah, I think software engineers are going to be like a layer deeper. So you always need the infrastructure engineer. You always need the platform engineer, the AI engineer. And so the specialized low-level engineer's job is safe. But the people creating products, anyone can make it now.
But their jobs, these specialized folks might be safe, but maybe you don't need as many of them as you do now?
That's safe to assume. But net, there's going to be a lot more developers. They might not have gone to computer science school, but day to day they're making software.
Wow.
But that's a big shift, because I just feel like the story that we have said for many years now is software engineers, coders, you guys are safe, right? Because every company is a technology company, and every company needs coders and figuring out how to do systems. You're saying no, that's not the case anymore.
Well, let me put it
Because
this
everybody can be a coder.
Let me put it this way. Every company in the world, even today, is limited by how many software engineering resources they have. That is one of the limiting factors to growth in our economy in general.
Right.
And so we're basically removing that limiting factor, and I think that's gonna create a lot better products and services. Companies like Duolingo can go from language to chess, and a lot of new startups are going to be created. I see startups on our platform every day. And so the economy is just going to be a lot more dynamic.
Are you doing the inference on your platform? Or do you have to contract that out to a third party?
So so meaning what kind of models do we use? So we use a collection of models. Some of them we trained and hosted, but we rely a lot of it on Anthropic. We rely on some Google models like Gemini, Flash, and Claude Code. These are what's happening in the LLM space is that there's so many tools out there, open source, closed source, whatever. As an application layer company, our job is to create the best product possible. Whether we pick model off the shelf or we train our model, it's engineering. It's not AI research. It's engineering.
Amjad, what I am hearing is that what your tool would be really incredible for is for smaller sized companies who maybe can't afford to hire software engineers. I have an idea. Tell me, where is your business, the growth the most? Is it small size, mid size, large size companies? Give us an idea. I just got about 45 seconds.
So you're right. Small size is where we're seeing the most growth. But in terms of contract value, it tends to be mid-market and enterprise. We have Fortune 500 companies, and the way they use it is to unblock. Everyone in the enterprise has ideas to improve the business, but there's a limited number of engineers. And so these people are seeking the tools, and they're starting to be productive with them. And Replit is one of the big tools in that.
Pretty cool stuff.
Really
you too
cool.
could be a software engineer.
Hey.
You too could be coding.
I would love for you to try it.
I would love
Seriously.
to try it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
To join us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, really cool stuff. Founder and CEO of Replit, Amjad Masad. Founder and CEO of Replit is the cloud-based coding platform to help with software creation.
Cobalt, I tried it. I tried learning it in college.
You don't need it anymore.
I dropped it. See, I would now be good at it. We're coming back. Bloomberg Technology here in San Francisco.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
It's 3:58 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. What a day on Wall Street. Earlier gains fizzled with the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ heading toward the closing bell, all very much in the red. Right to the numbers now, with the S&P down 59.34 where we stand on the S&P. That is a drop today of 0.6%. Dow Industrials down 140, a decline of 0.3%. NASDAQ lower by 173, a drop today of just about 0.9%. The Bloomberg Mag 7 Index down 2.2%. Tesla shares certainly weighing on that index. Tesla plunging 14%. 10-year 4.39%. The 2-year 3.92%. Spot gold down $13 the ounce. 33.58, drop there of 0.4%. And West Texas Intermediate crude up by about 0.8%. 63.33 for a barrel of WTI. Bitcoin today down 2.6%, 101,910 on a Bitcoin. Stocks fell alongside treasuries as online squabbling between President Trump and Elon Musk knocked down Tesla, dragging other mega cap tech shares with it. The NASDAQ 100 dropped as much much as 1.2% before paring losses. Tesla was down 14% as President Trump proposed ending Musk's government contracts and subsidies. So heading into the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange, we've got the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, all very much in the red. And there you have it, the sound of the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange. Folks from Circle Internet Group ringing that closing bell on a day when that stock, first day of trading, surged 168%. Again, Tesla shares plunged today by 14.3%, all because of the feud between President Trump and Elon Musk, marking the breakup of a once extremely tight political alliance. Again, bears repeating, Circle, first day of trading up 168, Tesla at the bell plunging by 14.3%. Coming up, we are awaiting the latest numbers out of Broadcom, Lululemon Athletica, and also Samsara. I'll keep you covered as we get those numbers. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash. Back we go to San Francisco, where the Bloomberg Tech Summit is underway. Once again, your hosts, here they are, Carol Massar and Tim Stenovic.
This is Bloomberg Business Week Daily, reporting from the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead, with insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy, plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Business Week Daily with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovic, live on Bloomberg Radio, television, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals.
Everybody, yes indeed, we are back on Bloomberg Business Week Daily. Carol Massar, Tim Stenovic, live in gorgeous San Francisco, and at an event where there's just so much enthusiasm, optimism, it feels like, about the outlook, and just talking about technology, where we're going, a lot of AI, and we've got a great hour coming your way.
Yeah, we do, and we've had a great couple of hours, so do not miss that. Check out our podcast feed for everything there, but let's look forward to the next hour, because we've got the CEO and co-founder of Fireworks AI. It's also featured in Business Week's One to Watch in Technology. She's with us on the new battleground when it comes to AI infrastructure.
And do you love office meetings?
Do I love meetings?
That would be a no.
Does anyone love meetings?
No.
All right.
Sam Liang, CEO of Otter AI, he's really working to change the culture and dynamics of meetings. It sounds like it could,
He's got a Sambot. He's got a Sambot.
He does have
I need a Timbot.
We're also going to talk about, we just talked about coding, right? And applications that are helping everybody essentially become a coder. So I'm curious about what the CEO of Code with Klossy has to say about that. They have all been in, kind of leading in big time for STEM, for women, for all populations, but I'm curious about what they see about the coding environment. Also,
we've got a Nobel laureate joining us. She's Nobel laureate in 2020. She shared that award for her pioneering work in the technology, gene editing technology known as CRISPR. Jennifer Doudna is going to be joining us in just a little bit of time.
All right, let's get to our first guest, because when it comes to AI, we talk a lot about the difference between training and inference. Training, exactly what it sounds like. We're talking about teaching a model how to essentially AI. And inference takes it a step further. It's the work that the model goes to and does to give you actually an answer, Tim.
That's exactly where Fireworks.ai comes in. It's an AI inference platform. It's backed by Sequoia Capital, NVIDIA, AMD, and more. The tool aims to make it easier for companies to adopt Gen AI, allowing them to access more than a variety of models using its platform. We're talking about companies such as AnySphere, Uber, DoorDash, and Verizon, among the startup's customers.
Lynn Chow is the CEO and co-founder of Fireworks AI. She's featured in Business Week's One to Watch in Technology. It's a guide to the people you're going to be hearing about a lot more in the near future. She's the former senior director of engineering at Meta. She's super smart. That's all I'm going to say, having watched a bunch of videos. She joins us here at the Bloomberg Tech Summit in San Francisco. Great to have you here with us. Thank you for finding time. I feel like by now many of our viewers and listeners are using tools such as ChatGPT. Tim and I, all of a sudden, in the last few months, I feel like have amped up big time. ChatGPT, Claude, and a lot more. What does Fireworks AI offer companies?
So Fireworks is a SaaS platform for application developers to build on top of Gen AI technology. So the interesting thing to differentiate us from Frontier Lab is we are basically teaching the model to speak in the language of application instead of having application built on model as a utility. So there's actually a huge difference, the approach we're taking together.
What is that difference? Explain that.
Yeah, the difference is the model that is built by another research lab they may not understand how it's going to be used in reality. And for example, a model can be used to transcribe our live conversation into a news outlet publication, which is very specific to what you are doing. And the model may not be trained or learned to do that at all. So we firmly believe there's a huge space to adapt the model towards the best quality, best speed, and best user concurrency for specific application that we're building the platform for. So that's why we're not just an inference provider. We are also a training plus inference co-optimization provider to make the model tuned specific towards your application. And we believe in one size fits one, not one size fits all.
So if you think about this from your customer's perspective, I always try to talk to people like you about where the general consumer may have interacted with the technology. Let's take Verizon or Uber, for example. What exactly have you done with those companies that our audience would have experienced?
Yeah, so first of all, we build on top of open models. We firmly believe in open source as our journey at Meta to build up PyTorch is a massive open source project. So we anchor our vision there. And all our customers actually build on top of those open models, and they will tune those models, again, towards the application. What we let them do is to do their product and model co-design. Model is a critical, integral part of their product. And the co-design is going through data flywheel. And all the user behavior information that collected from our application can feed into the model and make the model better tuned towards the application, make the product better. And this keeps going on.
I'm like kind of blown. I hope there's no test on this afterwards. I mean, like it's just kind of, I feel like we're just, in terms of what we're doing with AI, like things are ramping up so rapidly. So tell me, like, your perspective on what we've seen in the last couple of years and the development and work that's being done and kind of where it's all going and how it impacts our world.
Yeah, so if we think about how fast things are moving, it's unbelievable.
It really is, right?
So if you think about the slowest moving part, not slowest moving, but traditionally it's kind of slow, is the hardware development. And in the past, every 3 years, there's one new hardware skill. And now every year, for NVIDIA alone, there are 3 new skills. And that's just one vendor, not counting other vendors. So hardware is evolving really fast. And the model is evolving very fast. Whoever is championing on the leaderboard, after a couple of weeks, there's somebody else getting better. So this is a fast-moving field. And our application developers, they are like frustrated. And it's like, when can we stop chasing new things? And that's where we come in and build this abstraction to help them adopt new models, new hardware without any other work.
Well, what do you see as the distraction, and what do you think are the things that folks in your world like really should be focusing on?
The distraction is the adaptation into using new model, new hardware, or even using even find capacity of GPU, and all these threading things together is taking away their thinking process, and they should actually just focus on building a disruptive new user experience that never existed before on this new technology.
I'm curious on you, because you spend your world, like this is your world. You spend your days enmeshed in this technology. How is the U.S. doing when it comes to this tech versus other countries?
When it comes to tech, I don't see tech has boundaries. Especially when it comes to open source. Remember, we firmly believe in open source.
Yeah.
We believe in the technology shared by the whole, humanity. What I value is people contributing. It's not just taking from open source, but contributing heavily towards that, share their philosophy, methodology, what works, what doesn't work, contributing code, make things super easy, lower the entrance of barriers of interest. All of that is great. And what I see is vibrant research that's happening across the globe, and people are sharing.
Well, this is where I want to go, because you attended, forgive me if I mispronounce, Fudan University in Shanghai. Am I saying it correctly? Also UC Santa Barbara. Fireworks AI is based in Redwood City, California. I want to ask you why you wanted to study in the United States and some of the tensions that we've seen between the United States and China. It looks like things are easing based on some of the news earlier today between President Trump and President Xi, but why base your company here versus doing it in China? Help me understand, from an R&D perspective, maybe the relationship between U.S. and China.
Right.
And the importance of students being able to go back and forth.
Yeah, throughout my career, I've been working with so many brilliant engineers and researchers coming from all different kind of backgrounds. And a lot of them actually are immigrants from other countries, including myself. The reason we come here is because we feel like this is the high density of talents and where we can learn and we can contribute to it. And that's kind of the dream we have. And many people actually, we are in the process of fulfilling that dream. So I do feel like continuing to foster that thinking and relationship is very important.
In your view, though, is that at risk if we no longer allow international students to come to U.S. colleges? We've seen what's happened at Harvard, for example.
Yeah, to me, it's very, I will be heartbroken to see that becomes a reality, because I myself was an international student coming to U.S. and we are contributing significantly to create a huge impact in this generational industrial shift. And I cannot imagine there.
And you stayed here.
We stay here. Many of us stay here, and actually I'm staying much longer in U.S. than compared with my home country.
Could you have built Fireworks AI in China?
I'm not sure, actually. I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it, but I think this is the place to build Fireworks AI.
Yeah.
That I'm very sure.
Last question. Not last question, but I'm just curious about, like, where do you see, like, what's the next focus for you guys with Fireworks AI? Like, where do you want to take it? What's kind of the next strategy? Like, so much is happening so quickly.
Right. So our dream is to build these Gen AI tools for all the app developers to create disruptive user experience. That's our dream. And we are on a really great path to get there, because a lot of cutting-edge AI native startups like Cursor, Vercel, Merkur, they're all building on top of us, Notion, but also, interestingly, digital native enterprise, traditional enterprise, they're all working with us to embark this journey. And that's fascinating to me, and how much energy we're seeing across the whole entire industry.
Yeah, it seems like in terms of the capital spend or the tech spend, like every company seems to it sounds like what you're saying is all kinds of companies, all kinds of industries, like, understand that they need to be working with companies like you. Is that fair? Like, is there an example that you can give us in terms of a company that you've worked with, in terms of what you have done for them?
Right. So, for example, we work with Uber. That is one of the biggest mobility and delivery global company in the world. And they facilitate billions of rides and deliveries, right? And they're also early adopters of Gen AI technology, and they use us to solve use cases, for example, fast driver onboarding, and personalized customer support, or internal data analyst assistant tools. And they start from heavy experimentation, test their product ideas without thinking about underlying how to thread the needles, as we talk about, but also quickly scale into production without worrying about scaling to Uber is not going to bankrupt because of that, but scaling startup is really worried about scaling to bankruptcy, which is a weird phenomenon. While they have perfect product market fit, but they could run out of capital because this is very expensive.
Right.
Lynn,
really cool stuff.
Really cool. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
That's Lynn Xiao, CEO and co-founder of Fireworks AI. She's also featured in Business Week's One to Watch in Technology. It's a guide to the people you'll be hearing more about in the near future. She's the former senior director, of engineering at Meta Platforms. You see shares of Lululemon?
Yeah, I know. They are taking
right
in the aftermarket. So let me just pull it up on my Bloomberg, because we're looking at the stock right now down almost 13% here. And this happens after the company, you want to go through some of the headlines in terms of earnings?
The company forecast net revenue for the second quarter. The guidance missed the average analyst estimate. They saw revenue at $2.54 billion to $2.56 billion. That's what the company sees in the current quarter. The estimate was for $2.57 billion, so a slight miss there. Earnings per share, though, coming in way below estimates. Sees earnings per share between $2.85 to $2.90. The estimate was for $3.31. Shares down about 13.3%.
Yeah, so bottom line, forecasting sales that miss Wall Street expectations for the current quarter. It's really a sign this company has been struggling a little bit, and that its growth is waning. Part of it is those higher tariffs that are out there and lower confidence eroding consumer spending. We joke, we kid. Lululemon is not a place where you often find things on sale, and they're not inexpensive. So anyway, some context in terms of company-specific news, but also some signs of a result of the political environment, tariffs specifically, and also the economy.
Okay.
Where do we want to go?
I think people are more interested, no offense, Lululemon, in the latest between President Trump and Elon Musk. The president putting out a post on social media that says, this just after 4 o'clock, I don't mind Elon turning against me, but he should have done so months ago. This is one of the greatest bills ever presented to Congress. It's a record cut in expenses, ... goes on. I didn't create this mess. I'm here to fix it. Make America great again. More interesting is what Elon Musk sent 2 minutes later, I think, Carol. He says, in light of the president's statement about cancellation of my government contracts, remember, the president said the easiest way to deal with this is to cancel Musk's government contracts. He said, SpaceX will begin decommissioning its Dragon spacecraft immediately. This is what the U.S. relies on to get astronauts to and from the International Space Station.
I mean, this is going to show
the Crew Dragon.
How reliant, certainly the U.S. government, for different reasons, is reliant on various entities.
What does the
Elon
U.S.
Musk.
do? Go to Russia and get a Soyuz capsule?
Exactly, because we have, increasingly, kind of in terms of the space program, pushed it out into the private world.
I'm so glad you made that point.
I mean, I have, I grew up.
So
my
glad you made
dad,
this point.
did a lot of work for NASA, and it was all about sending men into space. He was an aeronautical engineer, and it was part of the government. It was such a big business, if you will, for the government, and they've basically been offloading it to the private sector.
So what are the risks when the United States or any country does not control this type of technology? Well, the risk is the guy who founds the company decides that at some point he's not going to use this technology. Look, is this going to actually happen? Is this a threat?
Yeah.
No idea. We're just reporting what Elon has said on Twitter, which is that in light of the president's statement about cancellation by government contracts, SpaceX will begin decommissioning its Dragon spacecraft immediately.
Yeah, we talked about Tesla getting a big hit, certainly here in the regular trade, and I just want to remind everybody, it was down as much as 18% or so in the regular market, down about 17.7%, closed down 14% in the regular trade. I just want to pull it up since these headlines and the back and forth between President Trump and Elon continue. We're seeing shares of Tesla down another 3% in the aftermarket.
Wow.
It continues. The president has also said, I asked Elon to go. Elon saying that's not true. Like, it's just the back and forth is pretty wild.
I will say the president is participating in a roundtable discussion with the Fraternal Order of Police. The pool reporters just got called in. We'll let you know if there are any questions or anything comes up about the latest between these two.
Could anything be asked about this?
If the press is allowed in, I would imagine they're going to be asking about it.
Yeah, President Trump saying I have
questions about
Musk
space
to leave.
now.
Starlink, I don't know in terms of the military if they use Starlink. There's just so many different aspects of this. This story, it's a business story, it's a political story, it's a social story maybe, in terms of the back and forth between these two individuals. Do not go anywhere. Tim and I coming back from the Bloomberg Tech Summit in San Francisco.
It's 4:21 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg, and this Bloomberg Business Flash is brought to you by Oracle. Attention growing businesses. Oracle's offering to cut your current cloud bill in half if you move to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. For new U.S. customers with minimum financial commitments, see if your company qualifies at oracle.com/Bloomberg. Broadcom out with earnings. The stock now lower, down 3.7% after hours. Broadcom is a chip supplier to companies like Alphabet and Apple. It gave a lackluster revenue forecast for the current quarter, suggesting that the AI spending frenzy is not as strong as some investors anticipated. After hours right now, we got Broadcom trading lower. Also keeping an eye on shares of Lululemon Athletica. That stock now down by 16.4%. It forecasts sales that missed Wall Street's expectations for the current quarter, a sign that the upscale athletic wear company's growth is waning as higher tariffs and lower confidence erode consumer spending. Again, after hours, Lulu down 16.4%, Broadcom lower after hours by about 2.7%. A down day for the Dow, the S&P and NASDAQ today, with the S&P 500 index moving lower by just about 0.5%, down 31. The Dow lower by 108, drop there of 0.3%. NASDAQ down 0.8%, down 162 points. The Bloomberg Mag 7 index down 2.2%. Tesla plunging 14.3% with the feud between Elon Musk and President Trump. The 10-year 4.39%, the 2-year 3.92%. Gold down $18 the ounce, down 0.5%. West Texas Intermediate crude up 0.8%, 63.35 for a barrel of WTI. First day of trading today for Circle Internet, and the stock soared 168% today on shares of Circle Internet. So bottom line here, stocks lower today as the Trump-Musk fight sank Tesla shares. The S&P 500 index ended the session down 0.5%. Back we go to the Bloomberg Tech Summit in San Francisco. Once again, your hosts, Tim Stanovic and Carol Nasser.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Yes, indeed, Tim and I still here at Bloomberg Tech Summit 2025 in San Francisco. And I got to tell you, this is a lot more fun than spending time in a meeting.
Do you want to spend less time in meetings? Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think Sam Leong agrees. He's CEO of Otter AI. It's the company that's probably best known for transcription software, but it's trying to create something that's going to help you spend less time in meetings. They've spent a decade doing this. They've
Probably
created
having meetings to figure this out.
Well, what they've done is they've created this Sam bot.
Yeah.
And we'll let Sam explain exactly what it is, but it's essentially an AI version of Sam. And what they've done is they've trained it on thousands of meetings that he's done or what he's written in documents since he co-founded the company close to a decade ago. And apparently, it even sounds like Sam. Sam Leong is the CEO and founder of Otter AI. Welcome to Bloomberg Business Week. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So, there's this common refrain, you can't be in two places at once. But with Sambot, can you actually be in two places at once?
Absolutely. You can be in 10 places at once, right? As you mentioned, we started in 2016 building the first AI meeting agent that joins your meeting, transcribe, take meeting notes, share meetings with your colleague. For our company, all our meetings in the last 8 years are in Otter. Actually, I can access everything instantly on my iPhone, even when I'm taking a Uber ride. So with that, it is actually hundreds of thousands of meetings in our company. We say, hey, we can use that to train avatars for myself first, but the goal is actually training an avatar for everyone in the company.
All right, so how is this a good thing? Only because people like to do meetings just for meeting's sake. And I think, there's sometimes it's good to have to kind of whittle things down. So tell us why this is a good thing.
Yeah, first of all, I'm sure most people suffer from Zoom fatigue. With Zoom, it's so easy to schedule meetings. It's so easy to actually over-invite, maybe 5 or 10 more people, so that they don't want to leave anyone out. But the result is that everyone suffer from Zoom fatigue. For myself, sometimes I have more than a dozen meetings in a day. At the end of the day, I cannot even talk. I don't have energy to talk anymore. So I figured that it's actually, what if I can have my AI avatar join some of these meetings?
Thinking about this, I imagine the Sam of 2016 had a lot less experience than the Sam of 2025. So how do you make sure, I don't want to go back 10 years in terms of my own experience. How do you make sure that the Sam bot is not just trained on everything you've done up to now, but is over-indexing on the part of you that's learned from those experiences to make decisions that's gotten Otter AI to where it is today?
Absolutely, right? I'm sure you are more, has more wisdom now than who you were in 2016. The same here, right? The meetings actually have timestamp. So when we train the model, it will over-index on the most recent meetings over old meetings, right? And also a lot of metrics change, right? The company grow. When we started, we have a $0 revenue. Now we have over $100 million revenue, right? The model needs to learn what's the most up-to-date information.
So how, I think our Matt Boyle, who I think you've talked with, said that earlier this year that your SamBot had trouble kind of reading the room. How is that going?
It's a very challenging problem. We're still working on it. It's actually relatively easy to train the avatar to learn the facts, the technical details. It's still difficult to train the avatar to get emotional intelligence,
right?
To listen to people's tone and emotion, and also use visual cues to understand people's body language. That part we haven't done too much yet. We're still focusing more on the factual part.
So how long? Okay, so how do you get there? Because it sounds like it's something you're going to have to get there, because you could see there could be instances where something happens in a room and it's not going to go well.
Absolutely. It will still take some time. I cannot give a timeline yet. Again,
is it months? Is it years? Is it?
I think it will probably at least a year or two for it to be emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
So if you think about scaling this and offering this product, do you offer this product yet?
No, we haven't. We're only building. We have a Sam Avatar prototype, which we demonstrated in Matt's session earlier today. We do have a commercial product which we call the Otter Autonomous SDR Agent. It's live on our website. What it does is that we have millions of visitors who visit our website.
So I think one thing that I get about SamBot is when your direct reports come to you in a meeting, your SamBot can give them information, but you still, Sam the human being, are not necessarily getting the information that they're giving to SamBot. Right now, it's a one-way conversation.
Not really. Every meeting the SamBot attends, the meeting summary will be shared with me, so I know everything everybody said, and also what SamBot or Sam's avatar actually said. So if it says something wrong, I would correct it. Either in real time or post meeting.
Is he nice, SamBot?
What's that?
Is he nice? Is he a nice guy?
He is pretty nice, but sometimes maybe over polite.
That's funny. Okay.
It's probably good in this environment. I'm just going to say, Sam, thank you so much. Good luck.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, team.
Sam Liang, He is, of course, as we just talked about, the CEO of Otter AI. Isn't Sam Bot nice?
Hey, let's get on over to Charlie Pellet. He's keeping an eye on everything happening after hours stuff. Got lots of earnings, Charlie.
Indeed. And specifically, I want to focus right now on technology. Broadcom, the big story after hours right now. Stock has been bouncing around. AVGO on the ticker. Broadcom is, of course, a chip supplier to companies like Alphabet and Apple. It did deliver a lackluster revenue forecast for the current quarter, suggesting that the AI spending frenzy is not as strong as some investors had anticipated. Now, after hours, Broadcom narrowing its loss to just about 1.1%. It did say sales of about $15.8 billion in the fiscal third quarter, which ends August 3rd, though analysts had estimated $15.7 billion on average. Some projections ranged as much as $1 billion higher, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. So again, after hours, Broadcom trading lower now by 1.1%. The other major earnings story after ours, Lululemon Athletica, that story plunging now by 20.2%. Big day for tech news. Circle Internet Group stock almost tripled in its first day of trading, surging 168% to close at 83.23 in New York trading. A down day, though, for the U.S. equity market, with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all declining today. Stocks fell alongside treasuries as online squabbling between President Trump and Elon Musk knocked down Tesla, dragging other mega caps with it. Today, Tesla was down 14.3%. Indeed, weighing on the Bloomberg Mag 7 index, that index down 2.2%. The S&P down 31, drop there of 0.5%. The Dow lower by 108, drop there of 0.3%. NASDAQ down 162, a drop of 0.8%. 10-year 4.39%, with the 2-year 3.92%. Gold down 0.5, 33.55 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude up 0.7, 63.28 a barrel. Right now, let's head back to the Bloomberg Tech Conference, the Bloomberg Tech Summit in San Francisco. Once again, your hosts, Carol Masser and Tim Stenovic.
Thank you so much. Of course, Charlie, they are back at Bloomberg headquarters in New York City. We are here in San Francisco. Carol Masser, Tim Stenovic at Bloomberg Tech 2025. We want to get right to our Tom Giles. He's been very busy, responsible for this event with the team, senior executive editor of Global Technology, oversees all things global tech. That's a big universe.
It's a big story right now, and this is a great event. It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here.
And a lot of great guests.
We're going to talk about some of those great guests in just a minute.
Yeah.
But a lot has happened today outside of this conference that actually has an effect on a lot of the people here. And that's the breakup we're watching in real time happen between President Trump and Elon Musk. Among the latest, Elon Musk saying that SpaceX will decommission Dragon spacecraft immediately in light of the president's statement about cancellation of his government contracts. The Silicon Valley part of this story is big. Elon brought this contingent to Washington.
That's right.
It includes David Sachs, the crypto NAI czar. It included Jarek Isaacman, who was set to be the head of NASA, and that's part of this story too. I'm wondering how you're watching as somebody who's lived here and in an area that has traditionally thrown its weight behind Democrats, but over the last year really pushed hard for President Trump. And I think a big part of that had to do with Elon Musk's support of the president.
Elon Musk gave him a big stamp of approval. It was like the good housekeeping stamp of approval for this president. But mind you, remember that the tech industry needs Donald Trump far beyond whether Elon Musk is in place or not. There are still a lot of big decisions being made by the administration, both positive and negative. You've got tariffs. That has a big impact on the hardware makers. That wasn't necessarily an Elon thing. So they need to stay in the game concerning tariffs. They need to stay in the game concerning export controls. These efforts to put controls on what China can and can't sell into the U.S., whether you can invest in China, those are all still decisions being made by the president and by the people he has in place outside of Elon Musk. Sure, there were a lot of people who probably put their weight behind the president because of Elon, but they're going to have to continue to support the president or stay in his good graces, if you will, in order to further these larger agendas, again, that go way beyond Elon Musk.
So Tom, on
Yes.
a day where we kicked off and there was some optimism because President Xi and President Trump seemed to be talking, and so maybe there's some progress moving forward in a good way. Is that more important, you think, to the global technology community than kind of what happens between Donald Trump and Elon Musk?
It's of massive importance. China's not going away. China is the world's largest market for many of these products. And you want, as if you're an investor, you want to know whether it's time to invest in China. We started to see that with Benchmark, this venture capital firm, investing in Manus, right? Small investment, small company, but is this the beginning of a bigger wave of investment? And there's still a lot of tension between those in Silicon Valley who say, stay out of China, and those who would say, we're going to miss out if we do.
You know, on the Elon portion of this, it seems like there's a lot at risk to Elon's businesses. SpaceX and Tesla, we saw what Tesla did today, fell 14%. Carol shared moments ago that it's lower in the after hours as well. Rocket Lab, a competitor in some areas, is higher in the after hours. Elon Musk, I think it's fair to say, alienated a lot of people who traditionally would have been proponents of electric vehicles.
Right.
There have been a lot of articles about that, especially, you know, like Marin County, for example, right? But now it seems like maybe he's alienating supporters of the president as well. Where does a spat like this leave him and his empire?
You have to ask the question, right? So there are some people who believe that Elon Musk and his properties benefited from his proximity to the president, right? On the other hand, his proximity to the president also damaged his brand.
Right.
And it weighed on Tesla shares. And it also diverted his attention away from SpaceX, Tesla, and the list goes on and on and on. So was his proximity, his presence in DC, a benefit to his companies or a boon, or a detrimental impact? And we saw a lot of detriment. You saw what happened to Tesla shares when he made it clear that he was going to disengage from the president.
Right.
So I'm not sure I totally buy into the idea that you went long Elon Musk because of his proximity to the president.
Okay. Tom, before we let you go, we're lucky to have you. You took a break from everything you were doing on stage at the Bloomberg Technology Conference. You spoke to Dara Khosrowshahi today. How would you characterize, we have about a minute left, how would you characterize the big theme at this year's event and the big takeaways?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a lot of it is U.S.-DC relations. A lot of it is U.S.-China. With Dara, we talked about kind of the climate, the economic climate right now, and whether the consumer is coming back. He sounded a bullish tone on that one. He also talked about considering stablecoin as a mechanism for cross-border transactions. So we broke a little bit of news on that. Later on, we're going to talk to Andrew, Trey Stevens. We broke some news on that. Also, big valuation, big investment, big fundraise at a really high valuation. So we're going to talk to him about that a little bit later.
People more optimistic or concerned? Uncertainty we've used so much. What would you say? What was the final word?
I would say on balance, there is optimism, but the one big question that I meant to say is, will the AIs come and take all of our engineering jobs?
Yeah. We're going to be talking perfect segue to our next conversation.
Exactly.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for having me. It was about time.
You were on stage. We were trying to get you, but you were on stage.
We were a little busy. Thank you for having us.
Thank you
See you
so
later.
much.
All right,
Tom Giles is a senior executive for global technology here at Bloomberg.
Yeah, great stuff as always. All right, folks, back to New York we go, and a quick check on the latest news, some news after the closing bell with Charlie Pellet. Charlie.
All right, I thank you very much indeed. Keeping an eye on shares of Broadcom after hours. Right now we have got the stock trading lower by 1.6%. Broadcom, a chip supplier to companies like Alphabet and Apple, giving a lackluster revenue forecast for the current quarter, suggesting that the AI spending frenzy is not as strong as some investors had anticipated. And Lululemon Athletica, the stock after hours right now down almost 21%. It is forecasting sales that missed Wall Street expectations for the current quarter, a sign that the upscale athletic wear company's growth is waning. as higher tariffs and lower confidence erode consumer spending. So lots of earnings after the close of trading, but the big story today, the big market story, stocks fell alongside treasuries as online squabbling between President Trump and Elon Musk knocked down Tesla, dragging other mega cap tech shares with it. Today we did see shares of Tesla plunging by 14.3%. Again, the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all declined, with the S&P 500 index down 31, drop there of 0.5%, ending the Thursday session at 59.39. The Dow down 108, drop there of 0.3. NASDAQ today down by 0.8%. Tesla bears repeating today, down by 14.3%. 10-year at 4.39%, the 2-year 3.91%. Spot gold down 0.5%, 33.54 on spot gold, while Bitcoin today was down 3.4%, 101,086 on Bitcoin. Back we go to the Tech Summit in San Francisco, and once again your hosts Tim Stenovec and Carol Masser.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Yes, indeed, everybody. This is Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Masser, Tim Stenovec, live here in San Francisco. Now, for years, we've been talking easily about learning to code being pretty much a guarantee to getting a good job. Keep in mind,
just learn to code, Carol.
That's
what
they told us. Like,
learn to code.
You know, let your kids grow up to be coders,
Yeah.
because basically every company is a technology company, and they need coders to kind of manage their businesses, grow their businesses. It's been all about that. So many stories about those who've gone to coding boot camps and then found very lucrative work at some of the biggest tech companies. But there is a question now, and you know it if you've been listening to us here from San Francisco, about AI and software applications that maybe can teach anybody, Tim and me, to be coders.
Yeah, so should we actually be teaching coding if that's the world we're entering? We're going to pose this question to Oshiem Yokbaria, CEO of Code with Classy. It's the nonprofit that works, in its own words, to close the gender equity gap in tech. Oshie joins us here on site at the Bloomberg Tech Summit in San Francisco. It's great to see you. It's been more than a year.
Hi, friends.
Since we've spoken
nice
to
to
you.
have you.
A lot has happened.
Yes.
I don't think we talked about AI at all.
No, we didn't have time.
So that's the question that I have for you.
Yes.
Are we in an environment right now where we should actually be telling these young kids to learn how to code?
Yeah, I mean, that is the question of the hour, so thank you for posing it. I think when we think about the work that we do, we're actually thinking more broadly than actually time spent hands on keyboard producing code. There is a lot that you can learn from a set of skills that are durable and transferable when you learn to code. You're learning computational thinking, you're learning a way of solving problems, decomposing them. You're learning to find patterns and create abstractions. You're learning to think algorithmically. These are all skills that we believe are transferable to problem solving in any domain.
What's it? It's called Code with Classy now.
It's called Code with Classy, yeah.
Should it be called Code with Classy? Should it be called something else?
Well, maybe. I mean, what's
the term that you would use to that
think
encompasses
about
all of this?
Technical literacy, technical fluency.
Doesn't have the same ring to
Doesn't
it.
have the same ring. You know, branding aside, we've always had that sort of ethos to the work that we do, that really we are as proud of the young people in our programs who go on to get CS degrees as we are of the ones who don't. So we have folks in our community, for instance, one young woman who became a lawyer, right, and took her fluency in technology to help create technical policy, right? And so the point that we're making is that technology is infused in all parts of our life. And if you want to have a fruitful career, you should know fundamental technology skills.
But what kind of technology skills? I've listened to you before describe that, you know, the advantages of people learning to recognize patterns and some different things. And it said to me, wow, God, that sounds like AI and that sounds like a large language model. So I'm just kind of trying to understand what the future generations or younger generations, what in technology do they really need to know? Because I feel like at this point, they really need to know how to converse with a chatbot or with AI to get smart answers. Like, so help me understand how you guys see this evolution of what they need to learn when it comes to technology.
Sure. So when you think about producing a product in the world, there's more than just developing the code, right? Part of it is understanding what is possible with technology. What's the problem I want to solve first and foremost with technology? How do I make trade-offs among all the different features that I might put in that product? So the actual process related to building technology and putting it into the world and finding value and product market fit, as they like to say, is a process that involves a fluency with the technology beyond just producing the code. Yes, it is helpful to have a software agent or AI-assisted software help you produce the lines of code that are necessary, but you need that background in technology to architect the system, to maintain the system, to figure out how to integrate it with other parts of the world and other partners, right? So the fluency and, again, the confidence to understand how technology works is still going to be a baseline requirement. We may spend zero time spending, time coding because AI assistants or agents are doing that for us.
Right.
But we're using our fundamental understanding of the technology to advance the field. And then I would say there's still room and innovation on the frontier models in chip design, right? These are all still places where we haven't reached the apex. We still want to make progress in these fundamental foundation technologies. And so we need people who are still getting the PhDs and studying this sort of basic fundamentals that are going to help advance the next inflection point in computing that we haven't yet discovered.
Right.
Before we let you go,
Sure.
We just spoke to Tom Giles, our senior executive editor for global technology here, and he said one of the big takeaways is the conversation in tech policy and what's going on in Washington.
Yes.
And I'm curious because you worked at tech companies, you worked in philanthropy, you worked in politics, you worked on Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign. When it comes to tech policy right now, what is the White House doing right and wrong in your view when it comes to tech?
Well, look, I think the executive order sort of highlighting the importance of having AI education broadly accessible, I think that is a good statement to make in general as we're thinking about building a future workforce and thinking about American competitiveness globally. I think that is something that I can get behind. That's what I would say.
All right. Do you feel like the White House is listening? Just quickly. You're not sure. I know, it's a full
Let the
plate.
record show.
It's a full plate.
Look, there is a representative of Silicon Valley in Washington right now.
Absolutely.
With David Sachs. So
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Osi, thank you so much. She, of course, is the CEO of Code with Clossy, the nonprofit that works, in its own words, to close the gender equity gap when it comes to technology. So great to have her here at Bloomberg Tech.
All right, we're here in San Francisco. Charlie Pellet is holding down the fort for us in New York, giving us everything we need to know after hours. Hey, Charlie.
All right, what you need to know is what's happening with shares of Broadcom and also what's happening with shares of Lululemon after hours. They are both down right now. We begin with Broadcom. Looking at the stock after hours, trading lower now by 2.5%. Broadcom is a chip supplier to companies like Alphabet and Apple. It's out with a lackluster revenue forecast for the current quarter, suggesting that the AI spending frenzy is not as strong as some investors anticipated. Again, after hours, we got Broadcom, ticker AVGO, down now by 2.4%. The other big mover to the downside after hours, Lululemon Athletica. It is forecasting sales that missed Wall Street expectations for the current quarter, a sign that the upscale athletic wear company's growth is waning as higher tariffs and lower confidence erode consumer spending. Lululemon Athletica after hours down now by 19.91%. Cannot ignore Circle Internet Group's IPO today. The stock almost tripled in its first day out, surging 168% to close at $80.23 in New York trading. And by the way, co-founder Jeremy Allaire's fortune surged to more than $1.7 billion. Stocks lower today. Stocks fell alongside treasuries as that online squabbling between President Trump and Elon Musk knocked down Tesla, dragging other mega cap tech shares with it. Certainly a topic of conversation on tonight's Balance of Power with Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lyons coming up. Tesla today down just about 14% as Trump proposed ending Musk's government contracts and subsidies. So here's where we ended the day with the S&P 500 index down 31, down 0.5, the Dow down 0.3, NASDAQ down 0.8, the 10-year 4.39%, with the 2-year 3.92%. Back we go to the Bloomberg Tech Summit in San Francisco. Once again, your hosts, here they are, Carol Masser and Tim Stanovic.
For that update, Charlie Pellet. Well, our next guest shared the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2020 for pioneering work in the development of gene editing, specifically CRISPR-Cas9. She's also the founder of the nonprofit Innovative Genomics Institute. There's a lot more stuff. I'm not going to read it all.
We just want to talk to her.
Because we want to talk to her.
We just want to talk to her.
We've got Jennifer Doudna with us. Welcome to Bloomberg Business Week.
Great
How are
to
you?
be here. I'm great. Wonderful to be here.
Perfect timing because I want to get an update on where we are in your view with gene editing technology. I think Everybody saw the story this week and a few weeks ago. The 10-month-old baby who received the world's first personalized gene editing treatment was released from the hospital this week. I mean, this is really exciting stuff. It looks like CRISPR gene editing tech saved his life.
Yeah.
When does this treatment not make headlines? When will more patients get it?
We have to scale the approach. I think what's very exciting about baby KJ, beyond the immediate impact on him and his family, is the opportunity to make this technology available to many more people. And that's exactly where our institute is focused.
Jennifer, is this the holy grail in terms of fixing all that ails us? Like, do you see it going to a point where we're born and we're scanned and we see, here's the problems, and we do the edit at an early basis? Like, is that where this goes?
Well, maybe in the future. I think at the moment, I think what we're looking at in the near term is an opportunity to fix rare disease mutations.
I mean this in a good way.
And that's great.
Right?
But in the future, what about for others, for kind of more broadly, what kind of impact is it going to have? I think in the future, we're looking at opportunities to prevent disease.
Yeah, exactly. How do we get there?
Yeah.
Like, what's needed? Is it 20? And also, how long?
Well, I think a couple things. One is I'd love to see us scale the N of 1, the rare disease approach, because I think that creates a pipeline for expanding the opportunities for more patients to participate. And then secondly, I think we have to continue to look for ways to ensure that editing is done safely and effectively. What are the right ways to regulate it? What are the right ways to test it? That's all key to expanding it into more patients.
I want to talk funding here for research because in 2023, American universities received about $60 billion in funding. That went to every single state in the U.S., universities in every state. Much of it's gone to research. That's at risk right now. How has public funding fueled your pioneering work?
Well, we had a grant from the Department of Energy. Was our very first grant to work on CRISPR. And I met with the Secretary of Energy last week. I told him that if we hadn't had that grant, we couldn't have started the research. So it's really important that we have federal dollars to support curiosity-driven science that drive new innovation.
Is that at risk right now?
It's a risk. It is. And the other thing I think to point out is that the federal funding of science creates a huge, highly trained workforce here in the United States that create the people that are trained to go into pharmaceutical companies, to go into biotech. A lot of them become entrepreneurs here in the Bay Area and elsewhere. They drive the future with innovation.
What would you say, Jennifer, to people who are listening and say, well, I don't understand why an academic institution like a Harvard or that has a multi-billion-dollar endowment, why do they need federal money, to do R&D? So help us understand why that is so important for America and our academic universities and institutions to have that federally funded research. Why is that so important?
Well, it's very important because we need to fund the kind of out there, high risk, but potentially very high benefit research that drives the future. Companies aren't going to do that. Investors don't want to put money into things that are unproven.
And universities aren't going to do that on their own?
They can't, they just don't have the resources to do it. Private universities that have, resources that go beyond what we have at public schools like mine can do maybe more than the rest of us, but most universities simply do not have the funding to support science.
I want to push because you understand this world. So what if they say, well, wait a minute, so don't build another football stadium or don't, you know what I mean? Like, spend that money on doing R&D if it's so important.
Right, but I think, the thing to understand is that the federal government has traditionally invested in science really since World War II ended in a way that has returned more than $2.50 for every dollar invested. And that comes from the companies founded, the intellectual property, the patents issued, all of the inventions that have been created, all of the cures that we're now seeing, CRISPR and other things. That is really a direct result of federal funding.
We're seeing a decline of interest, it seems like, from venture capitalists right now in funding these types of companies. Back in 2020, VC money raised for gene therapy companies peaked, $3.3 billion. It's been moving lower since to just a few $100 million last year. That's according to Dealforma. What's going on here?
I think that, I've been around a few years and I've seen some cycles, and this is not unexpected in biotech. This has happened before. I think what happens is that, sometimes there's, we go through moments when there's a lot of excitement about a field or maybe even a whole sector like biotech, and that was true in the early 2020s. And then there was a kind of a check on that, people realizing that, gosh, it's hard to make drugs, and it takes a bit of time. And so I think there's been a pullback. I think that the baby KJ story and some of the other things happening right now with gene editing in particular are just so inspiring that I'm hopeful that investors will re-engage and realize the opportunity ahead.
Speaking of engaging, and kind of back to the policy side of this, have you had a chance to speak with Vinay Prasad, the new head of the FDA's division that oversees gene editing?
I haven't, but my colleague Fyodor Urnov was with him this morning in Washington at the FDA.
So it seems like the FDA is receptive.
I think the FDA has played a central role in regulating new therapies like CRISPR. They are clearly excited about the opportunities that the story of baby KJ offer, and I think we have a great partnership with them.
You mentioned the other things that gene editing are doing, and maybe not everything gets into the headlines, but give us an idea of kind of the broad impact or the broader impact that it maybe has already had.
Right. Well, a couple things immediately come to mind. One is programming immune cells to fight cancer. That's ongoing with CRISPR, and there are many companies and academic groups working on that. We have opportunities in other areas like cardiovascular disease, where there's back to our earlier discussion about future protection against disease. I think CRISPR offers that potential. And then, thinking ahead, looking at ways that we might treat neurodegenerative disease, Alzheimer's, et cetera. I think that's also a very interesting opportunity with CRISPR.
Go ahead.
One thing I always wonder is that there is a massive business already established in treating cancer and Alzheimer's and so many different things. Does that ever slow the progress of something that has the potential to be so impactful, like gene editing? I'm always curious about that disconnect. It's a big business, right? Taking care of all of us and what ails us, especially as we get older.
It is, and both cancer and heart disease are really multiple diseases, aren't they? I mean, there's a lot going on there. Same with neurodegenerative disease. So I think the answer is we just need everything we have to treat these disorders.
You're also known to speak out about the potential dangers of this technology. What keeps you up at night? What's the doomsday scenario here if this technology is not used properly?
Well, I guess I always want to make sure that it's being used safely and effectively. So we're big advocates of ensuring, and this is why we're working closely with FDA, for example, ensuring that there are appropriate ways of testing the safety and effectiveness. Beyond that, I think we have to really think about two applications of CRISPR that have risk, that are a bit outside the usual risk. And one is editing the human germline, making heritable changes in human beings.
Yeah.
And the other one is using it in the environment, where it could spread quickly through a population of insects, for example.
Wow. How do we prevent that from happening? People, scientists, R&D, people like to experiment. You know that. How do we... And we have to make sure it's controlled on a global scale.
We do. I mean, I think this is where the Innovative Genomics Institute has played a key role over the last few years in the global conversation around these types of applications. We're pleased that many international organizations have stepped up. The World Health Organization, for example, is involved in creating a registry for people that are using CRISPR. And I think we have to just continue that.
Just 20 seconds, the way to bring down the cost of gene editing?
Scaling it and ensuring the safety.
Do we do that quickly?
Yes.
Okay. How's quickly? 6 months?
Not 6 months, but I think in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see big changes.
Okay, that would be fun to see that in our lifetime, and certainly our kids' lifetime.
We've talked a lot about doomsday scenarios today, so it's nice to end on some positive news,
Yes.
isn't it?
Congratulations on all the work you've done. This is
Thank
like
you
one
so
of the
much.
big ones. It's one of the big ones. Jennifer,
Thank you for doing it.
Great to talk to you both.
Jennifer
Good to talk to
Doudna joining us, of course, here, as we said, Nobel Prize in Chemistry, and also, of course, the Innovative Genomics Institute. She's the founder of that. We're done. I don't want to leave. I want to continue. Balance of power.
From the world of politics to the world of business, this is Balance of Power. Live from Washington, D.C.
From Bloomberg's Washington, D.C. studios to our TV and radio audiences worldwide, welcome to Balance of Power. Alongside Joe Matthew, I'm Kaylee Lyons.
Tonight, the growing rift between Elon Musk and the president bursts into a public war of words.
I was very surprised. You saw the words he had for me, the words of, and he hasn't said anything about me that's bad. I'd rather have him criticize me than the bill, because the bill is incredible.
The Trump-Musk alliance that kicked off the president's second term is apparently no more after a series of searing posts from Musk today and public comments from the president following Musk's opposition to the one big beautiful bill the president talks about. Trump now openly targeting Musk's U.S. contracts and government subsidies.
The impact of that rift now being felt across Washington and on Wall Street as Tesla stock takes a nosedive today, the biggest drop in 4 years.
And the questions being asked on Capitol Hill, with Musk loyal staffers at the Doge retaining their access to extensive government documents and sensitive personal data of millions.
Plus, what this all means for the tax bill when we speak with Senate Banking Committee Chairman Tim Scott and Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto up ahead.
That's where we begin tonight, with that growing rift between President Trump and Elon Musk still unfolding before our eyes, boiling over today before the cameras for the world to see.